Flirtfish and 3 big shields, effectively up to 300 shield, so he can take all the trades, but he also has 15 seconds of storm survival that he's able to use if it gets into that 10-tick zone. So plenty of options available to him and a very versatile loadout. So I'm going to swing back on board here. ZE Danny, 0 elim so far, does have the 1 placement point from last game, so he ended up getting knocked out between that 75th and 50th position. Currently hanging out, being a little bit of a bush rookie here, looking to see if he can't just set an ambush, which is something we've seen a little bit of a rise of. I mean, it's kind of a step back to traditional BR where there's a lot, hey, I'm going to hide and bait this chest, or I'm going to be around a corner and take whatever shots I can, whether it's to get Storm Surge tags or ultimately get the drop on somebody to get the elimination. We're starting to see the top level players either go all the way back to that or even get caught out by it. We saw Benji get door ambushed yesterday.
Yeah, I think it is. When you've got some of the best players in the lobby, you can't rely on those mechanics you're used to just walking through other players of the less skillful caliber. You've got to take every little edge, every little advantage you can. And Danny has a nice little base built up here out of wood that he can drop back into if he gets pressured. But he's using that bush to take shots on people when they're not expecting it. And 3 shots come in, and now Danny gets the elimination, not just the Storm Surge tags. And I think he's the closest one to this loot, but looks like he's feeling a little bit pressured from someone who's also moving towards it. But I think he will secure that loot, and you need those advantages. We've seen some of the best players. I saw Furious get door ambushed as well the other day at Lazy Lake after killing 4 other people in that Lazy Lake area.
And it's so tough when that ends up happening because you feel like you finally cleared everyone out, that one person is able to take advantage of you, get all the resources, secure that elimination, and finish it out. Now we're on board here with our match number 1 winner. Ace 1 trying to push in. The Alpha Core member desperately trying to find the shots here. We have the tack shotgun in the close range as well as the crash pads, going to utilize both against the AR spray from Trunk Monkey, and not going to be able to convert on that one. Needs to be careful around the side, but getting that elimination and securing himself up as Avery now, after CS Squad's winner, is going to dive right on in, hopefully trying to take advantage of Alex. Alex forced to crash pad away, disengaging, using the chug splashes there. You can see it on the wide as that comes through, but Avery getting the walls, trying to push in. Alex is just like, nope, not doing anything about that. Ace desperately trying to disengage, wants nothing to do with that situation. It looks like he's going to be able to get out, so we swing back on board over. Nope, as I say that, gets taken down right away. Avery says, joke's on you, you're out, see you next game.
Jeez, I feel like that's a very aggressive push by Avery. Like, I feel like I don't know why he was going so aggressively on that. We didn't get Avery's perspective to see what his loadout was, maybe his material, maybe even Storm Surge could have been an issue there, but there was something that was pushing Avery to be incredibly aggressive there, because I don't think that is a fight he normally would have pushed unless there was one of those factors that he needed to control. As Coop gets elimination onto Ryan now, and he's even upgraded that inventory now. He's gone through one of the big pots, but he's gained an extra 2 crash pads, which can be very, very big, especially coming into these end games for that extra kind of utility and rotation.
And now you can see he's trying to measure out just how much of these extra hard mats he has, create as much of a tunnel he can, and then he'll probably look to utilize a crash pad, considering it's not necessarily the safest rotation. There were a number of players on the path. Nope, just kidding. He's just going to run out through the open and hope he doesn't get shot at, which bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off there now. Switch on over. We saw Big Head get taken down last game by Dubs. We swing on board here with Saucy, who's right on the side and might have an opportunity to pick up an elimination. We saw just how low an A gotten sprayed. There's the first white tag. Can he follow it up with the second? Switches on over, still utilizing the burst, and this is going to be it here. Right after the server catches up for a second, you'll see Saucy pick up this elimination. Hopefully I'm not wrong. Apologize for the lag. And boom, there it goes through. Gonna pick that one up and be able to convert. And as he does that as well, the Storm Surge pressure will turn off as we have our top 70 placement points going over to top 75. So good job on Big Head at least making it in that time for it, but still plenty of players to go down.
Yeah, I can't believe he didn't go for the loot, though. That's what confused me. He's only got 4 medium bullets there, so maybe someone else pressuring him from close than he tend to get it, because he is now running into endgame with no medium ammo, which is what just got him that key elimination. So Kippert's in a good position here to go through the crash pad into the corner box if he wanted to. Maybe not choosing to be as aggressive, though. It's just, with these crash pads in the game now, I thought Heavy Sniper was probably one of the most kind of pressuring item, one of those items that you just don't want to hear, and there it is, exactly like that. I was gonna say, at any point, at any time, if someone is on a box adjacent to you, they can get into your box very quickly. As Smack falls, though, as he gets the jump on Kippers, but doesn't get the shots, unfortunately, going down there. And it's perfect timing, as I was about to say how scary this item was made up for these players. You could almost never feel safe.
Yeah, you can't feel safe. You can't just be comfortable sitting in a cone, even if you're double layered up. You will end up bursting it out there. The best thing you can do is stay on the move and engage out the side. But also, I'm gonna reprimand Smack a little bit there. Went in leading with the AR, or he might have whipped his charge off of the start. Went with the AR, whiffed every single bullet, and then followed back up with the charge shot, got him down to 11 HP, and then also whiffed every single bullet to then get taken out. So if you're going to burn a crash pad aggressively in the mid game, you have to convert, particularly if you get into a box like that. However, getting hit immediately with the 173 is going to put pressure on you as Booga now get put into the box. Can he fight it defensively? Good job putting the ramp in the way and then blocking the other player off, trying to phase the ramp through. We will wait for a second here as the server does catch up. Booga under pressure, just under 70 players remaining, with 4 players left in the circle. Apologize for this, as it will get resolved here in a second. And you can see Booga will be the one to pick that up against Crack. So that's twice now we've seen the aggressor on the crash pad play get taken out. And Jelty, just above that, says, I don't want anything to do over here. 2 players being taken down recently. He's going to head towards center zone, as a lot of other players will likely do the same as we see 4th zone revealed.
Yeah, I mean, they're making me look good here today. I've made a point, and they're just back to back over and over again. They're just jumping in the boxes. As Zexro looking to make his rotate. Don't think he needs to go for an aggressive play. Hits that launch pad. Now he's going to be able to recycle that. So holding onto his launch pad and the 3 crash pads he had on top of that, as he's now making his way onto ultimate low ground here. Building out a nice kind of 2x1 out to the side. Choosing to stay more on the ground level in his hard mats rather than going up another. Has 67 players alive. Going to try and find his angles on the low grounds. He's nice and safe, and there it is. That's why the low ground is sometimes the spot you want to be. You can get some good shots on other opponents, but it leaves you safe from the third parties. Probably going to get them secure at that extra loot, as he's now got a nice long base along the floor here with a lot of room to control.
And Eclipse also got taken down just right before that, so unfortunate timing. Again, we talked about how key this 4th circle zone rotation is, and why you're seeing so many players burn utility here, because if you can get into the zone and guarantee yourself 50-50, it's a good chance you'll be able to advance farther in the game. But right now, we're seeing the lobby aggressor has been Avery. 3 eliminations with still 61 players remaining. He's been taking the fight 2 players. It's been paying off because the refreshes are granting him tons of utility. Just look at this loadout. Epic weaponry in the form of the Tac Shock and the AR has plenty of chug splashes, the minis as well, and then 6 crash pads as well as the launch pad. Like, he's going to be able to have so many options both aggressively and defensively that if he wants to keep running at people for refreshes, he absolutely can.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to say, there's something earlier that was pushing him to go for eliminations. Maybe it's just confidence. Maybe he's just backing himself to win these engagements and get those extra points on the board, because he's looking very, very good for those 3 eliminations, as we have Nobu 8 not looking too great, and he does. Falls down to Mikey there. He was on such little health with so many opponents around, but Mikey not out of it yet, as he has a very, very tough rotate ahead of him. Got to go all the way down to the bottom left for that half-half zone. Sundown explaining it last game. That is obviously the first zone in the game that goes half in the old zone, half in the existing zone. So it goes out into Storm, and as you can see, it doesn't leave a lot of areas for these players to fit in. You've now trying to cram over 50 players into that tiny little area. This is where it gets very, very congested, and then first rotating zone is going to show after that, where the first zone is going to go completely out into the Storm, and these players have to start using that utility, the utility they can hold on to after this big rotation. Booga looking like he's in a good spot, already in that half-half position, which is massive, seeing as he only has 50 shield and 41 health with no extra meds to top him up. So needs to find an elimination before these rotating zones kick in, and it's exactly what he does. Damien falling there.
Yeah, and then utilizing that harpoon to get whatever upgrades and materials he can. Good job making use of what he has with him. As you can see, everyone now being forced in the rotation. Everyone but 4 players have already made it in. You can see the late launch pads being used. It's going to be dangerous for everyone on the outside. Storm Surge has now turned off, as we have 47 players remaining. Second placement point being gifted over as we move now into the moving circle phases just after this circle closes. So starting to herald the start of the late game, transitioning kind of out of that mid game, and we'll see who's able to establish control. The key things you want to know is who is on ultimate high ground, the player who's able to look all the way top down, and then who is making the moves on the back side of the zone. That's everyone who is rotating late, just trying to be forced to move along and burn as few utility as possible. There's so many plays and fights that end up engaging on that side. That's where you want to keep an eye on. Whoever ends up being on should be a pass into basically the top 20, top 25 or so.
Yeah, that's elimination of the game to start off his rotate. Now gets a nice little mat refresh off that. No, accidentally hits the crash pad. Gonna go back down and the harpoons come out. I think he actually, that crash pad's now made him lose a lot of the loot he would have gained, especially those materials. Only has 45 builds, but still maybe enough if he can recycle some other mobility around him. As we see someone in a different situation, Scrubs looking really good on that front side with 117 builds in a position to close out this endgame and kind of just stay ahead of the storm. The more you can be on front side, the less risk there is from behind. If someone aggresses on you, if someone takes a fight with you, you have that extra buffer of time, but the least amount of players are going to be here on front side as they're getting caught up in different engagements, different rotations, getting just stuck on that backside trying to get forward. As Scrubs only has 6 points here in game 2, but looking to make it a big game and trying to hold someone who is on that backside of Storm that I was just talking about.
And this is when we talk about that action that happens on the edge of the zone. This is where players are looking to convert, make big plays, and Scrubs makes Bandit pay right away. Big refresher there, but somebody is out on the side of the zone and also pressuring towards him. You can hear all the crash pads being burned as it's a far rotation for a lot of players in the lobby. We just hit inside top 30, so placement point going over, Storm Surge turning off. Zexor also going to go down just inside the top 30. Scrubs picks up a huge elimination with just 9 HP left. Able to pick that one up, turns it over. Well done from him there. As you continue seeing, as we move over the river, everyone burning that utility, using the crash pads, trying to find a layer, trying to get away. The rundown from the top high ground last game. Scrubs not going to opt to take that shot there as he just continues rotating around the side, looking for top 20 for the next placement point. Then it's top 15 after that. We'll have it there, and Scrubs will also contribute another elim of his own. That's 5, but only 4 builds left, Aussie.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Scrubs here. He's making the same game plan. Rotate front side, hold someone backside. Go back to front side, and there you go. Now he's back on backside, though. Needs to make his way back through, and look, back on front side. He's got such a clinical game plan here, and it's playing out so well. 6 eliminations, only 9 builds, though, so needs to use everything he can here. But this zone is now pulled back through the old builds. So what that means is a lot of these players can now go back through these builds. They can kind of break their way through, hide in them. They don't have to have as many materials to build their own tarps, but that's exactly what Scrubs is doing, and he's burning through them quickly. Identifies he has 0 builds now, going back into the 1x1 he has, and this is the most exciting part of the game. This is the make or break, and that is it there. No builds. You need to capitalize. Can you find your elimination? Can you keep going forward? And that's exactly what Scrubs does. And now he's got 3 more builds to keep going forward. And again, back in the same spot. No builds now, Sundown. Can he do it again and again?
Yeah, but a little bit of a misplay there, not going out and picking up all of them. He only got 4 of the builds. Now down to just single-digit HP. Can he turn around? Finds one shot. Can he find the follow-up? No, he goes down. Calc in the top right, up on the high ground. Keep an eye on the left-hand side of your screen as well. Just kidding now as we flip on in and zoom on Calc. Has that mythic shockwave launcher coming out of caddy corner. Also has a legendary AR to pair up with it, or epic AR, excuse me. You see Assault, Berserker, Bucky, and Daxor make up the rest of your top 5. Top 3 is the next placement threshold, but it's all about aiming for the victory royale in the eliminations here. Bucky in the box has that epic shotgun, looking to find it. Also has the pepper running as Berserker picks up Daxor. Assault goes down to Calc from shockwaving out in the zone. Bucky finds a 75 tag. Can he convert it into it? Yes, he does, but Calc drops down. VSB takes out VSB, and then at the end, Built by Gamers takes out Built by Gamers. Calc finishing off Bucky, 23 points for him, rockets himself up with a brilliant 19-point performance there.
Yeah, we talked about it. There's so many friends in here, so many teammates, so many clanmates, so many org mates. There's just so much going on right now, and Calc playing that so well, just waiting for that last opportunity to just drop down from high ground and finish off everyone down below. We're going to have to break it down with the guys on the analyst desk. I saw Stretch up there. I want to see how they did it.
There we go. Calc finding himself the victory royale here on the stream. You like to see it. Now, boys, he did have the caddy launcher. This is something we talked about that wasn't in play last game. And now, Shy, we see the results of what that mythic weapon can do in the right hands.
it also shows us the changes that happen in the game once it actually ends up inside an end game, right? People are playing that much more defensive when they hear the audio of that weapon just be fired. You do not want to get thrown all the way into zone. There's not many items that can really pull you all the way back in once you get hit.
There's one other one.
Incredible.
Fool's glider gun there as well. That mythic glider gun is one of those ones. You get hit in the zone by that shockwave. It's a counter to it. You can get right back in.
Man. Guys, let's take a look at the standings together. How have things shaken up after Calc's big win? Now, do keep in mind, Coop here, holding strong in first place. He did get second place with 5 eliminations in the previous game, and now found a top 22 performance with 3, so that's why he's holding with 1 point. But Calc there, now joining him at the top, saying, I have Victory Royale, 5 eliminations, and 23 points. Shy a wager. Look, though, Booga creeping up there now.
I'm just looking at players who are used to being in a certain position, a certain seat near the top, and just not enough room for everyone to take a seat, take a spot. Like Coop and Calc, very similar in the fact that they like having the glory, the first place titles game to game, low ground control, high ground dominance, but only one person can really have that title at a time. You were mentioning Booga, who's rolling up too. Him and Bucky, very similar of playing low key a little bit first, playing for control, and then popping off towards the end side of the game. On the back page, though, we have Stretch, who's right behind just there. Scrubs, who we saw have a phenomenal moment there from the 7th to 8th zone. Daxter, Doxyfishy, Zextro, everyone who was a bit lower in 30th or 40th place is now cementing their spots in this top 20.
You talk about seats. There's only so many seats at the table. 25 is where we're looking, and we're going to show you who's on that top 25 and who's on the cusp of not making it to grand finals. Again, it is a very, very slim margin right now, as it'll probably be that way into the next games as well. It's usually within a point. It's probably going to come down to the last game for a lot of these players. As you see, Okote there in 25th, 11 points. But right behind is exactly FN.
Yeah, top 100 players, and once again, top 25, 25th place where A1 Okote is what you need to hit. And that point threshold is 11 right now. It'll only get higher, higher, and higher. You will need to place every game and get eliminations over and over again to be able to qualify for the grand finals tomorrow.
It's going to be a great rest of the day. We do have 4 games left to go. Guys, we did talk about the caddy launcher earlier. Now, we want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the glider gun. So I'm going to hand it over to you to do so.
Yeah, so the glider gun, Clay mentioned it a bit, is a counter to that shockwave launcher, and one of the mythical items that are also in Fortnite in 3 spots overall on the map. To get this glider gun, you have to end up eliminating Jules, which is what exactly does over at the Authority. It'll give you not only the glider gun, but also that little drum gun there, Jules' drum gun. It's also mythical, and it's an item that a lot of players aren't really using this season, Clay.
Yeah, it's a bit different from Midas' drum gun, which we saw last season. It doesn't do as much damage. It doesn't fire as fast. As you see exactly, he actually is going to upgrade it here for a legendary AR as he decides that's more worth it in his inventory.
Yeah, and this is the vault you're looking at, which is there on every single mythical spot. A card will also drop from every boss, basically. Exactly, though, using that glider gun has to have slightly faster reactions, doesn't end up actually getting to see the full end game, but this is the effect of these weapons. It gets people dropping from their lairs to search for them if they just find a whiff of it. Berserk picks it up and uses it over and over again to stay alive, save materials, and get ahead of the zone. Something that is so important to do because you dodge a lot of damage, a lot of pressure from everyone else. He's literally flying by layers over and over again just to make sure he has a safe space to be. He has a box and he's not really that pressured. I mean, didn't get a lot of eliminations, but he got towards that top 3 spot just flying past boxes and then getting one big final elim onto Daxor, who's in your top 3, ends up going out, but this was the item that let him maneuver this entire endgame.
Putting in all the work, boys. Thank you for the breakdown. We'll have to see how these weapons can really change the flow of what NE East is looking to do. Obviously, with someone like Calc, it's like when you don't have the caddy launcher in game, everyone's just kind of like, okay, it's not in play. We have more freedom. Then you put it in the hands of someone like Calc, and he's like, okay, I'm going to just rain down these rockets from that high ground. And now you're going to play the game I want you to play.
it's give and take though, right? With these items, we saw it with the shockwave launcher. You have to stay very hidden in the mid game. With the glider gun, every time you use it, you are immobile in terms of, or you're not able to shoot at all when you're using it. Your weapons actually get put away for that glider in midair. So there's a cost for these weapons for how strong they are. These players are overcoming those costs, playing a little bit more passively than getting to get active later in the game.
And for some of these players, that's not their normal playstyle. Yes, they've been dropping here in scrims and the qualifiers, but it goes against what they are. We know Calc as a very aggressive player, and the Shockwave lets him do that, but only after he takes high ground.
It's adapting to the maximum, right? Because Fortnite is a game of adaptation when it comes to spots, when it comes to patch changes, seasonal changes. But literally mid-game, you have to change your whole game if you find that weapon. And if you're used to playing it, you could be like Berserk. It's really good, but you could also trip over your own feet before you land in endgame. And that's an issue. So you got to be very careful when you have these items and make sure you get the best performance you can.
And a lot of these guys, if it does switch into their hands, they are capable of making these plays, right? Just like you're saying, you have to be able to adapt. Especially when you get ready to head into grand finals tomorrow. You put a power weapon in someone's hand, they have to know how to execute on that. With that being said, guys, we are getting ready here to hop into our next game. So let's send it back over to our casters, Sundown and Aussie Antics, to take us through. Gentlemen, let's hit the battle bus for game number 3.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Shio, and Clay, for breaking that down. We're now a third of the way through, about to hit the halfway mark here for NA East Heat number 4, the last chance. Aussie, man, what do you think so far? What do you think of the action?
The action's looking really, really good. I'm excited. Saw Stretch back up there. Saw some of those big names that I do really want to see in the top. And that's kind of going to be the story of this heat. There's so many big names. Shia said it. There's not a seat for everybody at the table. There's 25 spots up for grabs. And I could name at least 25 players here who more than deserve to be qualified and into the grand finals. But it's just NA East. It's EU. It's those big regions with big names. And there's so many people who deserve to be in the grand finals. But you have to prove it on the day. You can't rest on your past experience, your past games. I know yesterday in Heat 2, 12 of the 25 people at the top going into the final games qualified off consistency. They didn't even make the top 25 in their qualifying final days. So there's some big names in here, but there's other people trying to rise up and take their spot and jump into the spotlight. As we see Calc, someone who's used to being in the spotlight, and spotlight was on him last game, but did it on the back of having the mythic caddy loot. He drops it Craggy. So chances that he gets that again is very slim. So can he capitalize and can he play his game without that mythic loot that I have to imagine he won't be getting as often? So he's going to try and take this fight here. And it looks like there's no one really around him. We have Marauders coming in, kind of packed behind him. Not much he really has to do here on spawn. He can kind of still out, but a spawn fight is going to happen every single time. We have Rich Homie Buon and Crunchy having their 50-50 fight at the boat. It is the ultimate 50-50. And when we talk about that, what we're referring to is the fact that this drop, if you go this drop, you can't pull out and go another building. You can't loot it from the outside in. You have to drop on the boat and you have to fight that opponent. And if you want to win the tournament or place, you have to win this fight. And Crunchy does just that. The reason these players are going here is because the loot is so high. There is so much loot on this boat that it is worth that risk. But you have to remember as well, that boat is the only drop on the map that is constantly moving. It'll be in a different location every single game, and how you play that and where the boat goes means you have to know different rotations. A lot of these players will drop Craggy, for example, like Calc, and practice that rotate for every zone. But if your drop is changing, your rotate has to change every single game. As we now see Authority, a staple drop spot with what looks like at least 4 players here, and they're trying to fight it out over that mythic loot. And looks like we have exactly has the drum gun, but he doesn't have the grappler gun or the key card. So maybe, yes, getting some of the loot of Jules, but not getting all of it as Ritual falls, and now he has it all. He has the grappler gun, he has the key card, and he has that drum gun to open that loot. He's looking really, really good here for this game now, but this is the drop spot. It's one of those mythic spots that always has issues. Can you walk away with the loot consistently? Walking away with it one game, and even potentially winning that one game, isn't enough. You need to get enough points consistently through 6 games, and you need to leave here a lot. Eclipse, the other player that's here, looking like he doesn't want to get involved in that fight, maybe just grabbing as much loot as he can and then leaving. Now we see Sharkies on the edge down here near Slurpee, and these are those southern zones that so far today, these southern drops are getting a little bit unlucky. This is game 3, and I think we've seen every single zone pull north so far. So if these players can manage now, and then in the final half of today, get some more favorable zones, they'll be looking in such a better spot as Sharkies knows this drop. He knows the script's here, and he's baiting this chest. He's waiting for it. We've seen this. Sundown talked about it. These old school BR strategies. No, Script has no idea. He's breaking the wall. He doesn't see him, and there he is crouching behind it. He's behind the, oh my gosh, he's behind the, like, what, the bedside table? So Script manages to go down here. Sharky's picking up the elimination by strategically using the furniture for cover behind that wall, and another big pickup. He was just straight up hiding behind it. We talk about old Battle Royale strategies. Fortnite implementing a building system. Having builds means that a lot of these players will kind of brute force their fights. They'll build up. They'll use their superior mechanics. But some of those old tactics of just baiting chests and having superior drop spot knowledge gets you the elimination so much more easily. As now we see Misty Meadows stretch, looking to not take any of those fights with Booger, respecting the other players that are at his drop spot, knowing that on this side of Misty, he gets more than enough loot. And it's worth noting here, this is exactly where Stretch dropped when he won the DreamHack Finals. The first NAE DreamHack Finals, Stretch won out of Misty, and he only had this row of houses you're seeing right now. He didn't even have the other side, as that's where Paper was dropping. So if Stretch has this whole half of Misty, I have to imagine that he's going to put up a massive performance today. He's getting guaranteed crash pads and sometimes even launch pads with that amount of loot available, and he's going to rotate maybe up to this henchman chest that a lot of people don't know is up here to get even more utility in his kit. So we have Ryan now in a fight with Luck FNBR. He's got him on the back foot. Ryan pushing forward, has those crash pads, so good chance we're going to see those put to use to get into this box. But Ryan, maybe not needing it, just going for the old school shotgun piece control on the wall. And there it is. There's the crash pad. You have to adapt to the meta, and you're seeing it time and time again here today that this is the meta. Crash pads is your way to get your eliminations with so much less risk and so much more for free, as Ryan trying to go back up now and close this fight out if he can, up against the wall, using the stair to phase in, showing that Ryan has multiple tricks in the back pocket, maybe also wanting to hold on to those crash pads. They are so useful. If you use all of them now in one fight, sometimes it's not even worth it. These fights are a very good example of winning the battle but losing the war. But Ryan, no, wins the battle and hopefully can carry that loot out to win the war here today as well. Try and come get his points back on the board, as that's his first point of the game, Sundown.
First point of the game, and you talked about his many tricks. Just like mine, I disappeared and reappeared. Apologies for that.
He is back.
Little bit of a storm coming through my area might have contributed to that, but all's well that ends well. Unfortunately, Ryan going to be on the receiving end of that one, going to pick up the elimination and the point. So fortunate for him. And Lazarb on the other side, if you're not familiar with him, somebody who is very mechanically talented, but can sometimes struggle to kind of get a foothold and make it into the end game. And he's on the other side of VSB Scrubs, who we've already seen today put up a number of really impressive performances in terms of these individual engagements, and he's looking to convert again here.
Yeah, Scrubs looking to see if he can close this one out. 16 points on the board, so he's pretty much at the halfway point for qualifying. And no, the shots go out. Lazar, the third party. No, it wasn't the third party. Lazar picked up the elimination, but the third party applying that pressure definitely contributed. And now he gets that loot as well. I was going to say they're around that halfway point. So qualification for most of these heats has been around that 30 to low 30 points. So that's what you're looking at. This is game 3 of NA East right now. So you're looking for those players that are on pace or around that 15 points to hopefully secure their qualification. But they have another point, another game to make it before they're at the halfway mark, as we're now tuning in over at Steamy. A drop spot that we haven't seen contested or having too many winners come out of NA East, but so many coming out of EU.
And I think it has to do largely with the rotations that end up coming out of here. And also, like, you have to give a little bit of the credit as well to the players who end up coming out of here. Janice, who has just been a phenomenal player out of the area, just doing so incredibly well. You can see Purse here trying to line up a long-range shot, but the odds of converting on those snipes, very, very, very slim. Players are going to cover up when they're around the supply drop, but there is just so much loot available in this area, as well as, I mean, we touched on it earlier, the access to metal, and very quick metal as well, in the form of those chain link fence. If you're able to get that and then get out, it's so easy, and then getting out is
pretty accessible as well between both the steam stacks and then the zip lines that run up the entirety of the East Coast. It makes most of your rotations relatively easy, as we see Purge just popping pot shots over in this direction, hoping to pick up this player. And as I say that, he'll get Ved one shot, one elimination, and that's going to feel bad for Ved, but feels great for Purge, but unable to close the gap and convert on that in terms of the resources.
Yeah, I think like you said it though, you feel bad for people with headshot snipes sometimes, feeling like what could have they done better, but I think that's a pretty big misplay from Ved. I think that's a bit of disrespect. You're playing against some of the best players in the world, the best players in your region. You have to respect that if they're taking sniper shots at you, they have every possibility of hitting. You've at least got to try and cover yourself or kind of move away from that area. And back on the steamy stacks, it kind of fits into what I want to talk about with Calc's drop as well, being craggy. This north side of the map has a lot less POI congestion as well, has less points of interest. Between craggy and steamy, you really only have a couple of drops that would work for solos, and if that, it's only really going to fit one solo each. So if you get zones pulling in this north area and you can manage to stay on the north side of the map, you're going to have way less people around you, and I think that's kind of playing into Calc's success so far here today. 23 points on the board, and there has been 2, now 3 northern zones playing into his favor. So seeing if he takes this fight here, whether he backs up or no, looks like it's not whether Calc wants to take it. Looks like Newfly wanted to take it, but Calc going to be the one who finishes it, dropping in. Does he get it? He does. The tack shot comes out, and Calc, I don't think wanted to start that fight, but Calc will sure as anything finish them.
Yeah, Nevify trying to get aggressive there with the Pepper, using that advanced move speed. It does last for a minute, so really good if you decide to go aggressive or when you're rotating in the late game. But Calc is one of the better players in terms of punishing mistakes. He's not necessarily someone who I think of as going hyper aggressive and going to be able to steamroll a lobby, but if you push him and you mess up even once, he's going to hit you, and he's going to hit you hard. As we see there, able to get that, secure his space towards the center of the zone. Can still see plenty of time left here as we hop on board with Eomzo, and he's 14 below that Storm Surge threshold. Still 15 players who will be under pressure from that, so expect a nice little surge of action here as Viable Emzo is going to figure out how viable he can be. Going to use a long-range crash pad to just try and get control over this build. Is going to get sprayed from the side, so needs to be a little bit careful in this situation because, again, Storm Surge is about to come through and start pressuring him in the next 90 seconds. He can't afford to take any excess damage.
Yeah, and I think that kind of long-range crash pad play end game is quite effective because it kind of breaks the player up and makes them a target. But in the mid game, it's not about so much as getting them out of their box. You need to get in there. Otherwise, you're going to get third party like we just saw. There's no point breaking this fight up and making it really exposed and in the open because that's only going to open you up as well. As this is what I'm used to seeing. Very clinical box fighting where right now they're heading those little angles, and clearly Eomzo knows how to box fight. So I'd want to see him maybe use those crash pads to get in more than stay out as he gets his first point of the whole tournament. So maybe realizing that, identifying that however he's been playing these is not working and kind of changing up the strategy. And this is the point to do it, Sundown. Game 3, if you have got 0 points on the board, you've got to change something quickly.
Yeah, you have to then be averaging 10 points a game on the back half, but more than likely, you're going to need a top 5 performance with a couple of eliminations to really bank one of those big 14, 15-point games that we see so often, kind of establishing people and really pushing them into that top 25 range for a threat. Otherwise, it's all about maintaining consistency and going forward, which is what Coop has been doing. A little Mr. Savage classic, sitting in the top of the cone, waiting to catch the rotating player there, going to get one, trying to turn it into 2, which is something we've seen him do really well today, is converting on one elimination and then not slowing down, because we've seen players, they'll try and go through, they'll try and get the loot. When we talk about refreshers, that means what a player drops on the ground and taking those materials, taking utility, getting upgraded weapons. But everybody knows when elimination goes down, and unless you're right on top of it, then it becomes a fight over control of that loot. And you can see here Smacked trying to establish area control around him. He is on the edge of the new safe zone, but he's also under Storm Surge, so he has to be careful for that.
Yeah, 6 points for Smacked is not a position I would have thought I'd seen him in, but you talked about it last game. He went for a big crash pad play and just missed his shots, and you can see that damage going right now. You can't see the animation, but if you see his health, see that hit? Looks like he's getting hit from something that is inside his box. That's that Storm Surge we've been talking so much about, and he's going to try and opt to out-heal it here, which I don't know about you, Sundown. I don't think that's the play. With 6 players to go down, he's going to be healing here for a while. He needs to go for something, and with only 18 below, you think that's not a lot of damage to get a shot off. I'd be looking to see him go aggressive on Crunchy here rather than just kind of sitting back and burning what very little heals he has.
So you hear the term griefing all the time. Smack's griefing his own game right now. 110% he's griefing it. He's making the play he has to do, and he's going to convert on Bandit. But he should have just dove in somewhere else before. Luckily for him, the player he's going to convert on has plenty of a refresher. But there is no need for you to go through, I think it was 3 minis and up 2 big pots to even get that chance when there was somebody right next to him. Like, having all of that excess utility, you can take a fight early on and engage and go, and then opt to use the utility afterward to heal back up. If you use it beforehand, you're just limiting your options. So good job on the execution to clean up that fight, but Bugha now, not a good job on that execution. Treforest getting in with a pair of crash pads and going to clean up the World Cup solo champion here. So tough run for Bugha in that case.
Yeah, tough run there. I think this rotate kind of got him focused a lot. You can see in that bottom right, there's a lot of players just on this edge kind of set up, and there is a little bit of a high ground, a little bit of a hill here, so you can see how many eyes would have been on that fight, but Treforest coming through and closing it out. And yeah, like you said, Smack got very lucky there that it wasn't just the fact that he got an elimination to keep him alive. There's a very good chance that player could have been quite weak in shambles, but he found a player that was incredibly stacked, and they're going to be so upset to falling that way, because all they would have had to have done is hold their builds and back up a little bit, played defensively and avoided him, and he would have inevitably fallen. But Sticks now here as well, 13 points on the board, looking to try and make what will hopefully be a little bit easier to rotate. There's kind of some high ground he can hide behind. There's some mountains, some hills on this northern side over near Frenzy. But he's got some players with him, and Sticks looking to put some shots out on him, trying to push him away or maybe get some damage. Quite often you'll see these players take shots at people in front of them, forcing them to build, knowing they'll keep going forward, and then they can use those builds as well, because Sticks is down to 61 builds total. He really needs to hold on to what little he has if he's not going to get a refresh very, very soon. But that one crash pad in the back pocket, we've seen it time and time again. You can't count it out. If you're looking for a refresh, that's going to be the way to do it. As he's setting up next to him, and here it comes. It might be hit now. Here he is. He's jumping down, going for it. I can just predict it now. I can feel it. As soon as someone needs an elimination and they have that crash pad, they're going to go for it as he's in the box, and the player falls. Not by his hand, though, as we see that OA Sticks has placed second in console FNCS Doers and has placed top 20 in mobile cash cups. So we're seeing someone who is adept to every single input, but unfortunately going down to Calc, who is adept at one and has been very dominant on mouse and keyboard PC since the beginning of competitive Fortnite.
Yeah, odds are good. Sticks living up to his name, playing on the sticks. One of the controller players representing, can be played on all of those inputs. Now you can see over on the side there, we do have Ketsui, Sharksy, Takei, Okatu have some room on the side here, but the question is, where is that next zone? It's going to pull a little bit north. Again, River is slightly in play, but most players have already established themselves. And again, during zone number 4, we talk about kind of where you're looking to rotate, and traditionally it's be as center as possible. But once you get to that half in, half out zone, as Okote pushes in and takes out Decay, two of those players who are side by side, the half in, half out zone doesn't pull towards the middle, right? So you can rotate into the middle, but odds are good you're already moving past players who have set up position on the side of the zone, are going to gatekeep in these players trying to rotate like Okate right now, and then hopefully pull that half in, half out. So just look how many players are stacked on the south side of the circle here in zone number 4. You can see it on the bottom right-hand corner as Jelty does pick up a Kote during that dangerous rotation. And he's going to get all the spoils of that. A little bit of overbuilding to secure it, but probably necessary there, as there is a player right on the other side trying to get those crash pads and just get away. Let's see if he can set up the ramp. And nope, not even going to burn one. Just going to go back the way he came and says, nah, 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 boo-boo, but I got the loot.
As Ace getting another elimination now, 23 points on the board. Came into this game on 3rd place. He's picked up 2 so far. So he came in 2 points behind Calc and 3 points behind Coop. So that top 3 is really kind of cementing themselves. I haven't seen Mikey or Avery as well in this lobby, but it's been a big day for sure for these players. And I think the way the crash pads are playing into this one, a lot of those players are going into the kind of mid to end game where normally you think you need to have gotten your refresh by then. Usually before, you had to take your fights before it got this congested, because trying to kind of close out a fight quickly in these kind of areas was difficult. But with the crash pads, you're seeing so many players going into end game desperate for their refresh and just going all in. And that's what it's going to be about, is can these other players avoid those all ins? And that's where I'm looking at people who I see like Kanata, who like to box up a little bit higher in these zones, not expecting to hold high ground, but just to get away from all those other boxes around them. If there's no one on any of the boxes adjacent to yours, you're in a much better spot, because the one spot you can't crash pad through, well, reliably, is the floor. So I feel like Kanata's been doing that really smart. And I want to see some of those players at the top of this leaderboard today trying to hold off these aggressors, do the same sort of thing. And that's what comes into Fortnite. As these metas change, these players have to constantly adapt and think, how can they avoid those fights and those eliminations that are just coming all the time?
Right, and as you say that, it gets popped out of the cone, crash pad going up there. Got to give a shout out to the VSB boys. They've been playing incredibly well across all of them. We saw Scrubs earlier, Panda having also a couple good rounds of games. STL has been doing incredibly well here, as you see Dubs trying to find some tags with that epic pistol. We've talked about it time and time again, the high rate of fire, and then also still having that 2.0 headshot multiplier. What that means, the assault rifles has had their change to be 1.5 in the most recent chapter, and now or in the most recent season, excuse me. The pistols, on the other hand, still at 2.0. So if you hit that headshot, you get the 50 damage coming through. So when it's in the hands of a hyper accurate player like Dubs, he's able to convert. As now we move over, circle 5 shots will come out. They do have a player right next to him though, in the second round of placement points have also ticked over as we transition into our late game.
Yeah, and Dub's kind of setting up in that higher ground position I was just talking about. It's also really great because when you try to use those crash pads to rotate endgame, if you're up higher, you can get more kind of verticality out of your box and you can tee them together. You get more momentum on the second one. If you're stuck in congested layers and there's lots of builds around you, quite often you'll see those players crash pad and just keep flying through box after box, and they never get that breath of fresh air they really want. So a lot of these players going for that high ground, but you've got to always be thinking when you're on that high ground, who has the shockwave launcher? Where is Kid's Loot? Because that is the ultimate threat when you're on high ground. You've seen it time and time again. We've seen it Sundown. If you're on high ground and you don't protect your sides and that shockwave launcher comes into play, it's a very quick ticket straight out into Storm.
Yeah, you don't go for high ground unless you've identified it. And even then, I think it's gotten to a point in the meta where you don't go for high ground without it unless you have at least 6 crash pads and you'll be able to force that player off. But we've also seen in NA East players who aren't going to rock a rocket launcher start dropping their rockets as they're rotating through. So less of them have trickled down kind of in the end game, just a self-limiting factor there. One of the few drawbacks of that shockwave launcher. As you see, Daxter utilizing the crash pads, doing his best to find a spot. Also finds back-to-back white tags. He's going to pick up Jaxie there just inside the top 40, so Jaxie will get that pity placement point as it comes through there, but that's going to be the end of his run. Kelk still up in the lobby, up on high ground, which to me, not seeing him use the crash pad signals he might have at least some utility there, and as I say that, he comes out and he's going to join the party of everyone just trying to overlap each other, and we're going to hop back on board here with Daxter, who's at the front edge of the zone.
Yeah, front edge of zone looking good. 20 points on the board, so well and truly on pace to qualify here in Game 3 of the last heat of NAE. So this is these players' last chance to qualify. If you're just tuning in, you're looking for players who are trying to get in that top 25. That is going to qualify them for the grand finals, as Daxor putting out a lot of damage, a lot of pressure, but not getting the elimination to show for it. And I haven't seen Coop in this feed, but I definitely saw Calc and Ace at the start of this rotation. So that top 3 is really pushing ahead and cementing themselves as Daxor gets in. The player still inside the cone, unfortunately. First shot doesn't land, but second shot does. But he's now down with, he's got the minis and he doesn't grab the crash pads. I think he tried to grab one, but possibly didn't. He's held outside in Storm now. It's in a rough situation. High ground is now focusing him down, and 28 health left, 18, 8, and he doesn't get the finish. He goes down to Tenzin as we slip into another threshold for placement, the top 25.
Yeah, and going down in 26 is so big there for the E11 player, missing out on a critical point as Katsui picks up Treforest. Tenzin goes down to the zone. We're on board here with Mikey. You can see him trying to make plays, and we've talked about it time and time again. Low ground on the backside of the zone. This is where the plays happen. Who's hanging out and playing floppers, trying to find an advantage? Who can convert as we have our top 20? Mikey right now just hawking and looking for anybody. You can see him controlling the space, and he finds his first one. 51 blue tag, but can't quite necessarily follow up. He's going to get pushed back for a second, trying to find it. He will get the conversion. Can he turn it into 2? Not going to find it, as Calc will pick up Dubs there instead. And now we have Simple up on the high ground, Clarity on the low ground, Ace, 1, Binny, Jelty, and Calc all in the mid ground. Shark hanging out on the side of the zone. Doxy Fishy still up, so a solid top of the leaderboard right here, as we have exactly in your top right and XX Shark in your bottom right hand corner to close out the game.
Yeah, we saw Shark go down in game 1, so I'm looking Shark to be the big shark here in this lobby. Maybe try and eat up some of those fishies as well, like Doxy, and try and just close this one out, because he needs some big points on the board to start getting on pace. Only 8 points going into game 3 is not where you normally see Shark, and he's on the bottom right of your screen, and there it is. That's where I'm used to seeing Shark, taking the elimination on the low ground. 8 players alive now. Calc on the high ground again, and we have Exactly low in, but Exactly still has the mythic grappler gun, which losing its effectiveness here in the end game can't move as far forward as Shark, losing no effectiveness, takes down one of the 2 A1 players still in this lobby. Simple falls. I believe we have lost Ace a little bit earlier in here. Shark going back down now. He's on the front side. That shockwave launcher in the pocket. Let's see if he goes for it. Calc had the power of it last game, but now Calc has to feel the wrath of the shockwave launcher on high ground. He can't hold it. Sundown talked about it. Most of these players won't try, but Calc actually going to give it a go. Shark only having 5 builds though, so needs to be careful on how he uses this. 2 builds left, 3 rockets left. It's a 1v1v1, and I believe that is Calc that is out in Storm. It is. Calc managed to use this gun to win the fight last game, win the game, but now he falls to it in 3rd place as Shark, now trying to have his moment, and there it is. Shark was the big shark, takes down Exactly FN, and picks up the game 3 win after getting 0 points in game 1.
And a great job to execute. We talked about what can happen on the backside of the zone when you're forced to make plays, and the play he made got him the mythic loadout, enabled him to close out the game. 19 points, gonna rocket him right back into contention as we cross the halfway mark in the final heat before the grand finals.
Thank you guys. Great casting on the day. As Sundown did mention, this is the halfway point. Shark fighting himself to victory royale. Calc, yet again, he picks up the victory royale a game ago and finds himself in top 3 yet again. This is exactly what we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks of competition, right? It's like, this is where you want to be. You have to find eliminations, and you have to make these top placements.
Yeah, I mean,
This
for
is where you
everyone,
wanna
it's kind of
perform.
been... Oh, go for it, Clay. Go for it.
This is where you want to perform in the last possible chance. If you don't perform here today, you're unfortunately not going to qualify. Of course, we do have grand finals, but you got to make sure you secure that qualification early, like Calc basically did there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at the standings together to see where he's at on said leaderboard. Now remember, he did pick up the victory royale in game number 2. So with that performance, Shy, he's still holding on to that number 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, I called it. It was either Calc or Coop. If these guys are let out of the coop with all these other chickens and hens who are just biting and pecking for the top spot, he will be one of those 2 to hold it near the top. He will be there every game once he has momentum. 38 points. Now we're seeing that kind of difference we don't usually see in any East between 1st and 2nd, between Calc and Ace. 7 points in total. Both these guys with victories, but still in the top 10. Big names, Dubs, Daxor, Simple, Jaden's here too, Mikey, Doxy, Fishy. They're all very, very close as well.
And even at just as close, Ensign, Avery, Lucky, Shark, we just saw pop off there. That victory royale shooting him up. It was a very, very, very good game for him, and he desperately needed that. Look, if you see 14 points in the victory royale, but coming into that game, he was at least on, do the math there, 5 points.
I mean, that's correct. Math is hard for me, boys. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I mean, for everyone, though, in that game, I think the one person who was ready, set and ready to go, basically, was Shark, who played really well, had that dub. In Game 3, making his statement, too, because before the halfway point, if you're playing well, if you're getting moments, that last back half of this heat number 4, is going to be that much easier for you mentally. So a bunch of these players who are in the top 25 or near it might have that. I mean, we've seen Berserk get that glider gun, get all the way to the end. Booga's there in 21st, too. They might have it, too, but they're also on that brink of not really being set in the top 25.
That's right. We have to keep in mind that top 25 are going to go through. And right now, Simple in 8th is within that striking distance of the sweet spot of 9 points. Now, with that being said, guys, we've been talking about these different mythic POIs, but I think the last one we're missing is the Fortilla. So talk to me about this.
It is a very interesting POI. One of the only mythic POIs that has a heal as the mythic item. That bottomless chug jug there from Ocean is very, very useful, but in solos, it's also very risky.
Yeah, to get the mythic loot from this big POI with so many different houses and places to land, all these different drop spots, you're going to have to eliminate Jules, who does have that big health pool. It's Tinny Jelly who gets there this game and gets that loot. Remember, though, that this is not really movement-based. As Clay said, it's heals over here that you get, as well as a little bit more firepower with that burst AR at more longer of a range. Popping this bottomless Chug Jug, though, Clay, it's difficult, and it takes some time. As it was happening, Tinny Jelly actually gets taken out by one person box diving him, and that was Calc, ultimately, who ends up getting that loot for the late game.
Calc was on fire, and that really set him up for that late game push. The bottom of Chug Jug is good, but in solos, it really struggles if you're not able to get it off at the right time. Calc did get into Dubs' box there and get the elimination, and you see he did end up dropping that bottomless Chug Jug, but in the final three, it was a Mythic versus Mythic. Shark had Kit's Shockwave Launcher and Charged Shotgun. Exactly, had Jules' Glider Gun, and Calculator had the Fortilla loot.
Yeah, right now is a three-way Mythic battle, so everything basically culminated all the way to that top spot. And I'm going to rank it. I'm going to say that that Shockwave Launcher won that game and is the winner of all the Mythic POIs we have on the map right now. Authority to boot at close second, and then at third, Fortilla still packing a big punch.
There you go. You'll love to see the breakdown. Absolutely incredible. Guys, we are now at the halfway point. There's only 3 matches left here in NA East before we know which top 25 will be joining us tomorrow for Grand Finals. Now, with that being said, the action is heating up, but for now, we need to cool down. So we're going to step away, but when we return, we'll have the exciting conclusion from NA East to find out which top 25 will join us tomorrow. See you guys in just 5. Welcome back, Fortnite fam, to continued coverage of the Fortnite Champions Series. I'm your host, Zeke, and joining us here on the analyst desk for all of NA East, we got Clay, we got Shy Wager, and in just a moment, we'll have more games. Gentlemen, 3 games left to go. Calc's making a strong push up there, but again, we're looking at that top 25 bubble, boys. With only 3 games left, what do you guys think we can expect?
I'm looking at the top 50, the top 70 overall. They're so close neck and neck. Everyone past Calc, who has that 7-point lead. So I want to know what people will change for the last 3 games. I want to know how this competition will look when it's getting closer and closer every game.
Man, all right. Well, it's time. We don't have to wait that much longer because we're getting back into it. So let's go ahead and bring the house down with our boys Sundown and all the antics to take us through the next game. Over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Shio, and Clay. But Zeke, I'll give that one 4 out of 10 at best.
Well, I was going to say I want one of those myself. I was about to challenge Zeke to try and give me his own. Don't worry, Zeke. Do one for me if you can, and I will give you the recognition it deserves. I promise.
I mean, I felt like I definitely gave it the recognition it deserves, but these players need the recognition they deserve. We're in the back half of NA East Heat number 4. This is the last opportunity for players to qualify, and with 3 games left, they really need to put their foot on the gas if they haven't already. But the players at the top really now just it's an action of gatekeeping. Calc being one of those at 38 points, looking to end some players' opportunities and close them out here.
Yeah, and Calc's good at doing that, as you see. He takes down Scrubs, the player we've seen performing very, very well today. I was very impressed with his endgame skills, getting frontside, looking back, but some players are better endgame. You have to get there, and unfortunately, Scrub's not going to be able to do it today. Calc is not the player you want to run to. He's on 39 points. He is now above qualification, well and truly. Calc is going to be in your grand finals, and now he is going to be changing up his play style a little bit. We all know who Calc is. You've heard about him. Unless you're a casual Fortnite player, you've heard about Calc. Maybe even if you are, he is someone who's going to play aggressive now, and he is going to end people's tournaments because he can really hold his own toe-to-toe.
Yeah, well, he's going to look to try and take those aggressive fights, see how much he can flex, considering he will be in those grand finals. We're going to now spend a lot of the time over the course of these next 3 games talking about the line and whether or not people are on pace. And what does that mean? That means that little yellow number there to the left of his health, that's what we're looking at, and whether or not those players can get above 30 points. That's what we've seen. If you're able to kind of get into 31, 32, you've all but guaranteed yourself a spot in those Sunday grand finals. So right now, Claw definitely has a little bit of work to do, and he's trying to do it right now.
Yeah, and it scares me a little bit that Claw was above that player, had the crash pads. He could have been able to use one of those on the stair that he set up to go into that box. We've seen happen so many times before, and I know it's an early fight, and we talk about playing consistently, but once you get to this point, Claw has 3 games remaining to rack up 22 points. He really needs to get these kind of eliminations and cement himself, and now looks like this other player, Trunk, is trying to do the same thing to Claw, which he was too scared to do. So Claw now wrapping around, maybe backing himself in a more traditional box fight, maybe not as comfortable with the crash pads, so I won't count him out yet. He could still make some as he goes up, never mind. Clearly very comfortable with the crash pads, going for high ground though, as Claw needs to win this fight. If Claw goes down here, very, very good chance he will not have a chance to come back into and qualify for the grand finals. He pushes forward with the tac shotgun, and he is able to close that fight out. Trunk Monkey falls. 2nd elimination on the board, so I guess Claw is no stranger to taking these fights. Maybe just wanted to get inside zone before taking the fight, so I'll commend Claw there. I'll take it back. He clearly had a strategy to close that one out, just didn't want to go for it at the time earlier.
Yeah, it looks like he was trying to wait till he was in zone, or at least more towards the zone, not try and lose any excess HP there. He's now on board here with Tinny Jelly. And also, just a reminder, since we're coming back from break, we want to keep you guys as close to up to date as possible. We did hop into this match a little bit later than we usually are, and right now Tinny trying to end his match a little bit later. Unfortunately, we're going to see him fall yet again. I think that's his 3rd or 4th early elimination we've caught on board with, so not his day, and not Glides' day early either so far, with just the single elimination and 5 points. Definitely has work to do.
It has work to do, and that's the thing. That's why in solos it's so important, because these players are at the bottom. As much as it's going to be very, very difficult for players like Glides to qualify, if they take down one of those players at the top, or even more painful to watch, one of those players that's around that 25 mark, they can still have massive interactions around the map. We saw it yesterday. There were so many big names going into the finals of Heat 2 NA East that needed to qualify around 25th, and we saw some of them fall to players on, single-digit points. That's the problem with solos. It's why you love it. It's why some of the players hated it. You can go down at any moment to any player. And just like that, your tournament and your chance at hitting grand finals FNCS is over. So Gabe here looking pretty good, 20 points. He's going to have to pick up about 10 to 12 in his next remaining 3 games. So not too bad. He's kind of on pace right now, but one big game to secure it feels so much better. We saw P-God yesterday have his 5th game absolute dominant run. I think it was an 11 elimination second. So he got to have that 6th game breezy run home. And some of these players hopefully going to do that too. You don't want to bring it down to your 6th game to have to clutch up.
Yeah, and here's Storm Surge coming through, and what a perfect time for Gabe to get some huge tags onto El Damien S. Caught out in the open, trying to play a little bit sneaky, but going to get taken down there, and we've talked about it so many times. It doesn't matter if it's an AR, a hunting rifle, a sniper rifle. If you stand out in the open when there's this many players left with Storm Surge on, somebody is going to make you pay more often than not. And now Gabe going to do his best to burn through as many of these excess builds as possible. The reason for doing this is, again, to get a safe rotation to zone, and so anybody else who comes back behind him isn't going to pick up those excess materials and top themselves off.
Yeah, you see a lot of players, as soon as they get their elimination, they'll try and expand out a little bit, whatever free mats they have around them, preferably hard mats. Is Mikey getting in the box right now? This is Mikey who came into this game in 4th place, showing why. Already on that 30 points, so he's really only going to secure 1 or 2 more points, and he's going to be qualified. So probably safe to say here that Mikey will be in the grand finals and probably playing a bit more confidently there because of that. And it's that tack shotgun. We've talked about it, charge versus tack. Me and Sundown have gone into it a lot. If you're going to be playing aggressive and you're going to be getting in boxes with the crash pads, it's quite often that tack shotgun that has the advantage because you can get multiple shots off. If that opponent can't get a perfect one single full damage shot with the charged shotgun, they're going to lose that fight almost every time.
Yeah, it just gives you more options in terms of pressuring the opponent's wall, using it in combination with your pickaxe to break walls. You're slightly faster in terms of off the edit and being able to place. And in most circumstances, if you do get into a box-to-box engagement, even if they charge swap, you're going to be able to get 2 tack shotgun shots. And if you do connect with kind of one of those chunky spread shots where you're getting a lot of headshot pellets, you can really put somebody down quickly, particularly if you get those epic and legendary variants.
Yeah, it's the epic and legendary that really puts down the extra damage. And we're talking about those shotguns, though, the charged shotguns. That's the big upgrade you want. If you get an epic or legendary charged shotgun, that's where you get that extra bullet in the clip. And it makes a big, big difference. Panda here trying to have a good game today. 14 points. He is right kind of below pace right now. He's pretty much 2 or 3 points below pace, needs to have a final good 3 games. Someone that I'm confident can and definitely has the possibility to do it, but this heat's just so stacked, Sundown. We're talking about all these players. Almost everyone I tune into, you're going to hear me say they have the possibility to qualify. These guys have got themselves here for a reason, but a lot of people, I've discussed it with quite a few of the other analysts and commentators, think that Heat 4 is possibly the most stacked of any of the heats we've watched out of NA East.
I think particularly in NA East, the big thing that has to do with it is there's so many players who look to play a similar play style, the ones who are hanging out on the mid ground and then looking to make a decision. However, if everybody is doing that, then it's really hard for all of them to do it effectively, as Panda gets a super effective Elim just hanging out on kind of what looks like a skeleton build. It doesn't look like necessarily somebody would be occupied here. Looks like somebody kind of based in and then moved farther central. So Reek's getting just really destroyed right there. So we're hopping on board with Doxyfishy, another player who only needs 1 or 2 more points to guarantee a spot in that Sunday final. Again, we have hit the first placement threshold with top 70, also turning off Storm Surge, which was on for a significant amount of that time, driving most of that action, as now Doxy getting a couple key armor shots here, but not necessarily sure he wants to commit to this. There is a player coming and rotating directly behind him right now, so if he wants to resolve this fight, he needs to do it quickly. Nope, that player is going to opt to just rotate around. Doxy still hunting, though.
Trying to get in there. He's trying to find his way, and he's up against this wall too. It's an awkward spot, but it can also slide him in as he takes down OSP. Doxyfishy getting that elimination, 31 points on the board, doing very, very well here today. He came into this game in 3rd place, so around kind of Mikey there as well. And I know I've been talking about it so much, Sundown, and I might be kind of, harping on the same point, but we get another North Zone. And I want to talk about how this is playing into some of those players that are dropping on the South side who are struggling a bit more than usual. I see Dubs up there in 7th, coming out of Fortilla, doing really well, but I see players like Stretch right now who are down on the leaderboard who I expect to do phenomenally well, and I want to see if potentially it is that zone. They have to Stretch is rotating all the way from Misty, trying to get to these North zones, and there is clearly something off today with his games.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Stretch in particular is somebody who we've talked about it before, how how important establishing an early game foundation is, and then setting yourself up, but also an early tournament foundation. If you're able to get 5 or 6 points in your first game, and all of a sudden you get 4 or 5 in your next game, then hey, I'm right on track. If you have that one big game in games number 3 and 4, which a lot of these guys are capable of doing and heating up and turning up a 8, 9, 10 point performance, then all of a sudden you're sitting pretty and you're right there. However, you get knocked out early, then you have to wait and you're sitting there in queue, and then you're under pressure, and maybe you don't necessarily get the best loot out of your first couple of chests in game number 2, and all of a sudden you're looking at all of these other players who are already up at 15 and 20 points, and you're sitting there on 3 or 4, maybe if you were lucky enough to get into the top 50, and that can be a real rough situation to be in.
Yeah, and you talked about it there. I think you summed up perfectly. It's the pressure too. These are not just big players, they're also big names. There is a lot of pressure on players like Stretch. Obviously, like I said, having won 2 set lobby grand final situations, but then we also have players like Booger. He's won the World Cup. There is so much pressure on these players to perform in these solid situations, like Panda taking down Laggy, and there's expectations on them. So I want to see what happens if they get a more favorable South zone. Can they have that big game you've talked about that we all know Stretch can do, that Booger can put up? But the pressure's going to start mounting soon. They've got 2 more games after this to do it if they go down in this game, and they're going to have to make it happen soon, because game 6 is where I'm expecting to see if Stretch isn't up there or some of these players aren't up there, they're going to leave nothing on the line and they're going to go incredibly aggressive.
And Panda is set. He can actually use all of that extra loot from the 2 eliminations he converted on to tunnel himself into zone, and then he's in 4th zone, so he's waiting for half and half after that. He's effectively transitioned himself into the moving circles with 2 extra people's loot right there. We're going to hop on board with Team Solo Mid Zexo. You can see in a low ground situation in a stack side of the zone, but he works very well in this space, occupying that box, picking up Techie, but then immediately going down, and that's the problem with getting pinned on the edge of zone. Look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Look at how many arrows are just stacked on top of each other there. Every single one of those players has already made the rotation, so if you aren't in the zone, they have nothing better to do than to just sit there and throw whatever medium and light bullets they have at you. Zexro going down there, 16 points after 4 games. He's going to need something really solid in games number 4 or 5, 5 and 6 if he wants to advance, as we see Ketsui pick up Okate there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. If some of these players, are they going to go maybe even the caddy corner drop? We saw Unknown Army do it in the qualifying weeks. He was having a rough tournament, dropped caddy corner and dropped 7 eliminations before first zone even started to close in. Unfortunately, couldn't rein in that aggression and he went down. But I'm kind of looking for those situations. Are these players going to step up and maybe change their game plan entirely? Or is maybe Zexro going to get a bit frustrated or try and show that kind of prowess and mechanical skill that we know he has and just take more early game fights? Because a couple of big games left here, if he goes down again or doesn't have a big game next game, it's all going to come down to eliminations game 6. We've talked about how big the placement points are, how many you can get consistently, but if you're looking at needing 15 points coming into your last game, there's not enough placement points up for offer. You can't assume you're going to win. They're going to try and go for a higher elim, maybe 10th or top 5 maybe, and try and clutch up that last game. As Polarized has the Shockwave launcher, this is his chance to have that big game to really jump him up into that position, because again, coming out of caddy corner, I've talked about how players might start dropping there who haven't been dropping there earlier in the tournament. So if he misplays this and doesn't have a big game, it's going to get pretty dicey for him coming into 5 and 6.
And poor edits being taken out there in 53rd. A henchman took him out in match number 1. Polarized returning the favor there a little bit, but getting a good rotation here, opting to play towards the low ground. Almost skips directly into the box. Excuse me, does skip directly into the box. Nevify never saw what hit him. It was a gliding Polarized. Good job to get that little bunny hop there. That's jumping right at the end of the glide to continue your momentum, push them forward, and then followed up with a huge shot. That's how you convert on opportunities.
Yeah, he gets a nice little map refresh. That's all he needs. 112 builds there with 6 rockets in the Shockwave launcher. I've seen players clutch up these wins with less for sure. If you have the mats to kind of get yourself through that first and kind of maybe into second rotating zone and then use the 6 rockets to take high ground, there's more than enough to kind of work around there. But Polarized now, you talked about it, Sundown, players actually opting to sometimes even drop their rockets to not have that trickle down effect. If Polarized gets an impact elimination here and he can get the loot off it and he picks up even more rockets, he is absolutely completely set for this end game as we see Crunchy here now marking where Zone's going. So he's marked the distance there to try to identify which way Zone's going and the elevation, because this zone is now going down the river and then back up the other side. So this is where players who don't have the utility, don't have the mats, who drop down into that river base and are going to struggle. But Crunchy choosing not to go aggressive out of the cone, actually dropping down to get away from this player.
I'm not sure about that. It seems like he wants to prioritize the rotation, which is understandable since you do have to go over the river, through the woods, and then up that hill, not finding Grandma's house, but finding an elimination. There's Crunchy onto Sharky, so immediately getting the rotation off, and he's going to get some much-needed upgrades because he was rocking just the common tack and the uncommon AR, but going to pick that up. Plenty of crash pads there as we see the rest of the lobby now taking to the sky. We will have our placement point tick over there as 39 players left as we hop on board here with Liquid Gabe. 24 points. Again, the qualification line 31, so pay attention to the players who are able to push themselves over that and guarantee them a spot in the grand finals.
And if you're just tuning in, this is Game 4 of the last NA East heat. This is the last chance for these players to qualify. The top 25 from today will go through the grand final, and that will make up our whole 100-player roster to close out this solo FNCS. As Gabe trying to cement himself in that position, sitting back here in Storm to use these floppers. He has 3 of them. They heal up 50 health in a 1 second, so you can take up to 5 ticks of Storm and then pop that flopper and keep moving. And now he's on backside using, because he had little material, incredibly well played. He didn't have the material to make this rotate, and like I touched on earlier, this is going up the hill, but he might kind of find this little breathing room around the side where he doesn't have to go all the way up. But no, he's going to try and go up and getting shot from behind. He still has 1 flopper left to try and play that in Storm. Gabe need to make something big, and big he does. Gets another elimination onto Han, and now he's down here on the edge, 27 points. If he can get 3 or 4 more here, break inside that top 15 to top 10, he could almost secure his qualification of this, and 29 points, not a bad game at all.
Yeah, and he snuck into the top 25 there, so got that 1 extra point. What he was trying to do was wait for other people to build up, but you saw 3 or 4 people all ran out of builds at once, so what did they do? Slid down Old Man Mountain. They said, let's have a go of it. Who gets the siphons? And right now the answer is Crunchy, cleaning up, and this is what happens when you get one of those floor edits that has an angle on the backside of the zone. Yes, people can make plays down there, but if somebody in the zone has control and can punish you, they can convert it very easily. You see Crunchy getting 1. Why not make it a double there? You can see Avery and Stretch going down Stretch just outside of the top 15, not Liquid Stretch. The other one, as Smacked, also gets Panda. Crunchy gets Calc and takes him down. That's 32 points for him. We'll be seeing him on Sunday with a fantastic run here in game number 4. But eyes up top, that's polarized up there, Smacked on the low ground with XX Shark. And the question is, who's going to be able to convert? And right now, it's still all Crunchy.
It's all Crunchy, and Shark having another good game though, so I think he's really cementing himself up there on the leaderboard. We have so many of these players around that top 25 bubble, 7 players remaining. Crunchy has 22 builds, 2 floppers, and 3 minis. He's got a good shot to make of this one because he can hold back a little bit, use those floppers in Storm. He didn't choose to push down here, has the elevation, gets the elimination. Can he take the wall and pressure on the second player? Choosing to push back, has 20 builds left, and he's really going for placements. He did not want to push that fight on the backside or just going forward. Actually, never mind, going forward, taking those builds, getting that control ahead of him to then push back into his polarized, still on the high ground, having that big game that I said earlier he needed to have with that caddy launcher. And there it is, 27 points on the board. Can he close this out? Can he confirm his placement? This is a player that I'm scared of. If he doesn't confirm it here, he's got 2 games remaining, dropping the most volatile drop on the map. Crunchy on the back foot now, 2 floppers in Storm. It's him and Polarize, 1v1. Can Polarize cement the qualification? Crunchy has already done it, and Crunchy falls. Polarize does just that. He has the big game he needed to. Very reminiscent of Cody yesterday, having that big jump up with that mythic loot, ending on 39 points. A phenomenal performance for him in game 4.
Well done from Polarize there, also pushing himself up into the qualification range. We're starting to see players cement themselves into the grand finals, and the question is, how do you like your peanut butter? Because Crunchy was absolutely smooth, and that was nuts. Analyst, can you break that one down for us?
Thank you guys there. Another great game out of NA East. Did not go the way I anticipated. Sundown making all the Crunchy puns. I mean, Polarize, especially coming out with a big win here and a massive game. He started the game of the day being eliminated 99th and now has made a full recovery, Shy.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
answered, though.
he was Yeah, by a henchman is what I was about to say. It's literally got taken out by a henchman to start off the day. We keep talking about the mentalities of these players. How do they come back? That's exactly how. Win a game. Make sure that game plan is intact afterwards, right? Even if there are mistakes. Really good job from Polarized there. Really cool plays from Crunchy, too. So many hot eliminations.
We'll have to see how this affects the standings, because we already know right around 30 is the projected number of qualifying in the top 25. So we know players like Calculator sitting at the top with 50 points, probably safe. We will probably be seeing him tomorrow's grand finals. But now we start to look outward, right? Looking at everyone else. Second place, down. It's a big 10-point separation between 10th place and second. Crunchy finding himself up there right now. Polarized jumping up to 4th with that performance. I mean, he's more than likely qualified as well.
I mean, one big thing here is these people who are in top 10, who are guaranteed qualing, are having to win games to get there. Yes, I know Calc and Polarize are a little bit near that top spot, the top 5, which is sometimes unreachable by people who are still trying to qualify, but even winning a game will only land you near the top 10. I'm scared to see how much people are going to have to play for top 25 overall, because for some people, it's so much harder to get a Victory Royale than others.
It is indeed. A lot of these players not strangers to finding them, though. Uga, Dubs, Avery, all capable of finding that Victory Royale, as well as Jelty down there in 19th place. But again, the question is who is on the cusp, and it's going to be Bucky right there in 25th place. But there is almost a tie there for it. 1 point separates them. But look at that drop down after top 26. 3-point difference.
I mean, yeah, and especially we have 2 games left. I mean, for a lot of these guys on the bubble, someone like Berserker, right? He can make the cut. He just has these 2 games that he needs to really show up and make something happen. Whether that be high placement, eliminations, even just 2 and placing even in top 10 is such a game changer for a lot of these players. With 2 games left, they have to kick it in a high gear if they want a shot at tomorrow's grand finals.
Yeah, the big thing right now is literally the final mentality in the final stretch. You hit it home, Zeke. It's just, what do you change now? What do you end up doing? And, you know, it's been happening all around the world, though. Some competitions have already ended.
That's right. Speaking of that, we actually have a look in on Middle East to see who was the grand finalist and the new FNCS champion out of Middle East. Now, do keep in mind this happened a while ago, but we wanted to go ahead and celebrate here with our champion, Cash Cup Warrior. There you go. Finding themselves at the very top, our grand finalist, 62 points, a Victory Royale, 15 total eliminations, and an average placement of 21st.
Yeah, that's actually going to be ASMR Spy. He did change his name there for us, so, you know, making it a little bit difficult. But ASMR Spy, congratulations. Getting that first place, getting $10,000 US.
I'm looking at a person who's going to have a name change to FNCS Warrior and possibly winner. That is a big bag to take home. What a way to win, too. A 3-way tie that he was 7 points ahead of. Overall, though, more ASMR players always say that Middle East is one of those places where these big orgs have players that always perform near the top spots and get these big placements in tournaments near the grand finals. Sakura is one of them. Rapid, Ferez, both these guys in 12th, 14th place, too. Down the list, Snoika, a lot of other players, too, all the way to 30th. Unit, Twistinator, Abdullah, Virus, Adam, Vane Non, MSG, Kuki, GNTL, and 7 Mood. I mean, Middle East just looked so tight with the point breakdown, too, so it must have been such a good finals to watch.
It must have. It definitely seems like it came down to the very last game. And it's seeing someone who is as strong as Sakura's unit down there in 30th means that it was a hard-fought battle in the Middle East.
Hard fought, but well deserved. Spy will hold the Axe of Champions high, being the next FNCS champion. And we still have many more to crown. Grand finals are tomorrow, and we'll be diving into EU and NA East. I cannot wait to get into the action, but we are getting ready to hop into game number 5 here in NA East. There's still possibility. 2 games left to go. Anything can happen. Anything will happen, as we've seen time and time again here in Fortnite. Boys, my heart's racing. I can feel it. I know NA's about to turn it up.
I'm ready for it.
I'll toss, yeah. I mean, Clay, I want a hot take from you, my man. What do you think is going to happen here in this game? Is it going to be a mythic item again near the top side?
All right, you want a hot take? I think, on the bubble, Bucky going to come out, going to just delete everybody. He's going to get 11 eliminations and a victory royale.
Okay.
The spiciest take. Goodness gracious. Clay, you coming out swinging? I want to see that. I mean, Shy, same question to you, my friend. Give us that spicy take.
Spicy take. It's going to be a little bit mild for me. I feel like it's going to be a shockwave launcher at the end of the game that's going to be taking a win, but not the person that lands at Caddy Corner. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see if he holds on to the item, but whoever it is will be a mystery player we haven't seen before.
Man, well, we'll have to see how this goes. But guys, that is enough of our antics. So let's get ready to turn it over to two quality casters to get us into game number 5 here in the FNCS.
I was waiting for it. I was sitting here. I was like, is he going to give me my moment? Is he going to do it? And yes, thank you, Zeke. I appreciate that. Definitely an 11 out of 10. I'm obviously joining. Welcome in. This is the 5th game of the NA East Heats number 4. This is the last chance for these players to qualify. They've got 2 games to do it now. Can they do it? I'm joined here by Sundown as well. Sundown, how are you looking forward to this last 2 games?
I'm very much so looking forward to the last 2 games, especially because it means we don't have to focus on Zeke's puns as we finally get a southern zone here. I mean, it's been rare, like a good pun from Zeke, but you can see everyone now rotating and going to be forced to head down to this side of the map, which is going to be a change of pace from the first couple of games.
Yeah, I've been talking about it so much. We get a southern zone. This is where, are we going to see it? Are we going to see Stretch, Booger, some of those players that are kind of around that bubble point have their massive game because they finally get a southern zone that's going to work into their favor. Also, though, players that are dropping caddy corners, I predicted that maybe a few of those players are going to start going there these last couple games for their big games. This is what you want. Not only do you go the mythic drop potentially to have your big game, but you get a zone too. So I'm expecting to see the leaderboard shake up a little bit here. We look at players like Calc, who's in first place on 50 points. He is at the complete opposite end of this zone. He has gotten the last 4 zones in a row and he doesn't get the 5th. Let's see if he can hold up. If anyone can, Calc is a phenomenal player. I'm sure he's able to, but we'll have to see.
And Berserk just set up for such success here. 9 crash pads, has the epic SMG there. Whirlpool center zone over by Gorgeous Gorge. He's going to be able to farm up very quickly. And we're going to hop on board here with Phases Binny, one of the representatives for the controller gang. You can see him way out here on the beaches by Steamy Stacks, just trying to collect whatever he can and then get on with the rotation potentially. There's tons of rock over on the side, and generally you can rotate late. However, you need to be careful if somebody does opt to take the top of those silos. They can rain shots down on you and just make your life really difficult.
Yeah, it is one of those drops that it has very, very interesting early game engagements, but they can be quite difficult. If a player wants to set up there and hold up there, there's very little you can do to get out of their sight lines. But I was going to say, on Binny being one of those controller players, he's also up there, obviously known with Diggy, his duo mate, as being 2 of the smarter, safer controller players. Even during last season, we saw so many controller players rise to prominence and go for those big point aggressive games. Binny always been playing his style, playing slow, controlled, and methodical. And I want to see that here as he needs possibly about 5 points in this game and 5 points in the next one, as we do see the placement format show on the right. If Sundown, you want to break it down a little bit of what we've been looking at.
Yeah, so you can see there that first placement threshold that we talked about is top 75, then top 50. Then after that, it's every 10 players to fall. So you get points at 40 and 30. And then it's every 5 players to fall. So 25, 15, 20, 10, and then top 5, and then as well as top 3 for little bumps and points. So definitely want to aim, obviously, to always win the game. It is a battle royale. At the end of the day, that is your goal, to outlast everyone. But in terms of maximizing point efficiency and where you see people make these big swings, it's when you get kind of those 2nd and 3rd places in a couple of elims, or that top 5 and 4 or 5 eliminations. Those end up being those really big kind of 14 and 15 point swings, when today the objective is in that line is around 31 points. 32 will guarantee you through. It looks like we're on a little bit of a slower pace today, but we also said that from Europe it ended up being the highest total we had seen yet.
Yeah, definitely. We do the projections behind the screen and we kind of run the stats and we see what we end up with, and it's looking like about 31, but you really want to get into that mid-30s to obviously make sure you're safe and really kind of secure it. As Crunchy on 40, more than safe now, taking a more aggressive fight, knowing he is safe. And this is where players have to do their research as Crunchy gets in and takes down Shaw. Don't know how many points that player was on, but that was their last game out of this on, and Crunchy hitting him with the disrespect. And I was going to say, you got to do your research. Who are those players around you who are known to be aggressive, who have already qualified? Who do you have to avoid? You need to change your pathing. You need to change your game strategy, knowing where the tournament's at. That's the advantage of these set lobbies. They have the access to the information, same as you guys at home, to know everyone who's playing in these lobbies, and they can study them and know where they're going. The replays there are available in the compete tab of Fortnite to these players and yourself to go back and watch, and you know they're in there looking. When we see those kind of like setup plays where they camp the chest or they door camp, it's because they've gone back and they know that player rotates that way, and they've just got ahead of their rotate path to kind of lay those ambushes. And unfortunately, that player going down, not realizing the Crunchy is out there, and that's his tournament almost over. One chance left to finish this one off.
Yeah. And it also looked like Crunchy took advantage of the fact that he had the pepper to close the gap faster. Ooh. Not again. We're 5 games in. You're not going to be able to be center zone and not covering your side, standing still. That player losing 108 effective HP. Good follow-up there from Gabe to get the white tags as well. And he will convert. Cracked going down 30 points for Gabe. Just needs to hit that top 75 threshold, and we'll be seeing him on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's just those shots that kind of go through the builds like that. Obviously, the burst rifle shooting 2 burst shots now, and they do. The second shot is quite prone to going through the builds like that, and you can get those follow-up shots, and Liquid Gabe doing just that. And that's a big elimination for him. He's right around that 30 points, so if he can have a solid game here, even break into, top 40, top 50 with one more elimination, he's going to secure his qualification off that. As we see Bucky, someone that Clay made a very, very spicy, bold prediction for an 11 elimination win. I'd love to see it. I mean, if someone's going to do it, we could even combine the predictions here. Does Bucky get his hands maybe on that caddy launcher like Shio said, and then have his massive game? Because Bucky needs something. 21 points. He's still on pace, but Bucky needs a big game here. And I think if anyone's able to do it out of nowhere, it's going to be Bucky.
Yeah, and he's just barely right on pace, right? But though having that scope sniper rifle going to be able to allow him to potentially find picks and rotate in here. You see him closing up here on the gap, going to opt to just instead maintain the high ground right over by this gorge area, just trying to do his best to control as much space as possible, give himself some sight lines. And this spot in particular is really central on the map, and it's positive because you have the whirlpool directly below you as well as the zip line to be able to give you options to kind of convert. As now we switch on over and we see Simple as Pop the Pepper looking to see if he can't pilfer a pair of plentiful points here right as we close in towards the top of that placement threshold. But will he be able to get it? Not necessarily getting the follow-up there. Liquid Stretch is backing him down right now, and Stretch is somebody who he really can't afford to lose this fight, and with only 7 builds, he's going to get a huge shot right there. The pre-fire on the edited wall and then resetting it right away. Desperately needed that, down to only 20 builds even after that. So both players in utter shambles, but Stretch will have an opportunity to at least stay in the game.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about, those southern zones. If this was that north zone, Stretch would already be past this point. He would be rotating. He would not be setting up here, getting these eliminations and getting these points. I'm really expecting these kind of players to show up big here today, because Stretch has been showing up big and performing more consistently than almost any other solo player in this region, if not more than any other solo player in this NA East region, trying to join the ranks of people like Arkram that are doing so well and winning consistently in these set lobbies. And Daxor, another player out of E11 who's been performing so well on 23 points, kind of stalking his way around this building inside the woods, seeing if he can find him, as he knows there's a player here somewhere. He must have heard him. We can see on the minimap that they are there, probably in the roof or somewhere above, but a few eyes around. I like this spot if you're going to try and have some more aggressive mid-game engagements, because there's a lot of cover from the trees. There's a lot of kind of like sight lines that get cut off, so you can lay an ambush, but also if you take a fight, not as many people can see you if you're somewhere that's a bit more open and exposed.
Which is really key, and you can also safely farm up some of the key mats that he needs here. You can tell he was already maxed out on metal when he was harvesting there, so able to get the brick and the wood he needs. But you can tell he kind of knows there's somebody lurking by, which is also very typical for when you're in not these player-built structures, when you're in the ones that are native to the map. Because now we hop back on board here with Crunchy, who is continuing his run and just jamming on everyone. Made him a sandwich right there. Zuki going down, 83 players remaining. here in match number 5. And if you are just joining us, welcome everyone. My name is Sundown, joined here by Aussie Antics. This is NA East FNCS. It's the Heat round, Heat number 4, the last chance for these NA East players to get into the grand finals, which we will be casting live tomorrow, so make sure you check that out as well. And Crunchy really has been putting his stamp on this Heat so far in the last couple of games.
Yeah, really has. He came into this game in second place on 39 points, 11 points behind Calc, and maybe that's it. Maybe Crunchy knows, hey, I've already qualified, but I don't want to be second on the podium. I'm going for first. If I need to catch up this 11-point difference, I need to put down some eliminations, and that's what he's doing. Is Trap on 16 points realizes he needs to put down some eliminations too if he's going to be able to qualify. Has 6 crash pads so far, opting not to use those to go in, but this player, massive misplay there, just doesn't identify that he had the cone, opens up the roof edit, and then Trap sees this and just goes straight through the cone. Good choice not to use the crash pad, didn't need it, gets 1 point on the board. He's on 17, so needs to pick up the pace a little bit, but that's a really good start to game 5 for him now.
Yeah, Jaden Lacoste just getting picked up right away there from Outcast Trapped, aka I believe that was Trap Killed, who just picked up by Outcast Rain here, but now rotating through Authority here. Hopefully not going to get caught by anyone, though they should be long gone. As I say that, a player drops right next to him in the frame. As we switch on over here, you have Booga stretched nearby, Mikey on the side, VSB Panda, Trank also boxed up right next to Stretch as we hop on board here with the Solo World Cup champ, who is right now on the outside looking in. Very much so on pace, though, with 27 points.
Yeah, Booger looking better as one of those players. So it's just interesting to note as well, Booger rotating out of the exact same POI, Misty Meadows, as what Stretch is, but has quite a few more points than him here coming into this game on, I think, 10 points above him. So as much as I talk about zones, it's not always about whether it's just you're going to lose because of it. It's just who's adapting better, who's dealing with it better. And Booger doing very well here today, 27 points with some difficult zones. He is set up near Mikey, though, which needs to be careful as Mikey has been right up there on the leaderboard in 6th place. And that's the kind of player, again, already qualified. Maybe they're a bit more confident to go aggressive on these fights. So Booger needs to make sure he's dealing with this one well. I don't know if this is Mikey right now. He's in the fight with it. Is takes down Mikey, and that's a big swing as now Booger's putting himself up there, potentially going to get enough points this game to jump above Mikey, and there it is, hitting him with the dance as well. So we got some big names in this lobby still up all around each other, and we're used to talking about Booger and Stretch really kind of who's going to take it today, who's going to, who's jumping up on top, who carried who in duos, but looks like Booger's coming out on top today.
Yeah, and right there, that was huge because he was actually 7 damage below the Storm Surge threshold, but still 10 players to go up at the time. And the thing Booga did incredibly well in that situation is when you have a cone in your box and the other player isn't able to own it and take it over before they dive in, rather than resetting it, you can just crouch and commit to the fight, which is what he did with the tac shotgun. And he actually avoided almost the entirety of the first 2 spreads there of Mikey's shot by just ducking behind the cone and strafing around it. So that's one of the skills that you don't necessarily always get to see, that little wiggle strafe and using the extra shape of the cone to give you additional cover. So really well done. The experience of Booga showing in a clutch moment, and then Duzon gets a gift from above, and that's Glide, not necessarily gliding well, and that's also going to be a 2-point swing when Duzon desperately needs it as we get our top 75. So still 5 players under pressure from Storm Surge, but the first placement point going around as everyone is desperately trying to claw into that top 25.
Yeah, trying to claw their way back in. And you talked about a movement. It's such an underrated skill in Fortnite that not a lot of people kind of utilize, especially. It's one of the main advantages, I believe, the controller as an input does have over mouse and keyboard. Right now, very, very balanced between the two, as you're seeing on these leaderboards. You're seeing those players on both inputs perform very, very well. And it does. It's that extra movement. Booga just being able to strafe while still hitting his shots is incredibly hard. As we now tune in with Dubs, and you see that 83% of Dubs' points in the finals are from placement, the highest rate of any NA East player this FNCS. So he is coming out of that far south Fortilla drop, even with all those north zones, and still getting more placement points than anyone else here today.
And a lot of it has to do with getting that launch pad, making sure you're securing it on the rotation. That gives you just a huge bonus if you're not able to pull that 5th half in, half out zone, as we are in zone number 3. Still 3 players will need to go down, being pressured by Storm Surge once that comes through. You can see Benny over on the side currently healing up and trying to get aggro on Nutex. He is one of those players under the Storm Surge threshold. You can see that on right above the map there on the right side of your screen. He's going to wait till the second one comes through to eat that flopper. Now he's going to try and go aggressive and turn this off. Storm Surge still going to continue ticking over there. Again, every 10 seconds is going to be that 25 damage coming through, and he's going to have to find a tag. No more utility for him through. One more will happen. Can he crash pad and get in and find the tag? He gets launched over the other side, gets a hit, and goes above. He's 11 damage above the threshold. That's all he needed to do. It cost him every single bit of utility. 3 players going down. Instead, he's going to follow up right away. He says, I have 25 HP in a dream, 22 points. I can't do this without the refresh. He's trying to find it, but now the storm is closing away. He's going to be forced to run away, and he goes down.
No, that can't be a repeat. Was that Binny? Binny just went down to, I swear, almost a mirror image of what we saw game 1, wasn't it, Sundown? The crash pad as Storm Surge is coming out from the player, about to go down in Storm, and hits the charge shotgun midair to take him out. I swear that has now happened to Binny twice today in 5 games where he's just gone down in that exact situation.
Oh, and it's so frustrating to be on the other side of the equation with the Storm Surge threatening you, and then you get above it, but then the actual storm itself then pressures you right there, and to be so close on the edge of the threshold and converting that play, but then Nutex turning it over. Stretch there, just sneaking a cheeky little them. Steezy going down on the side, but just barely even throwing a medium bullet in that direction, and he's letting him know. He's like, yep, I was the one who got that. Thank you.
Does manage to pick it up, and when 1 point's very likely going to be the difference between Stretch qualling or not, if he doesn't have one of these last 2 games as a big one, that's a very important little elimination as he expands out, and we see Daxor and Ace. Ace, who's been doing very well. We have 2 of the A1 members in the contingency in the top 10 right now doing well. Ace coming in 9th place, just above Daxor, who really needs something big, and he's got that launch pad you talked about, but only 1 mini for shields and nothing else. If he takes any damage on this rotate, he's not going to be able to kind of go back through too much of it, so needs to be very, very careful how he hits this. Possibly wants to hold on to that launch pad too, as that's his only utility, so big rotation. Daxor's tournament could very well come down to how does he make this next zone. He's going to have to play it carefully. He's got the hunting rifle in hand, waiting to see if any of these players ahead of them peak when the people around him start to move, and see if he can get a free elimination on that, or maybe going for a shot on one of the other players rotating.
He has to look for a pick here on the hunting rifle or recycle some utility. He doesn't have the builds to use the launch pad, and because of where the zone is on the rotation, there's 2 hills directly on his path that players have already built up on. He can't go in, and Okata is on the exact same path as him, so it's not going to be a clear path. He's going to have to at least fight right there. But now, since everyone else has burned their utility, look in the bottom right-hand corner, kind of that conga line of players doing the little slide into the box right into the funnel between. What Daxter's going to do is, because he's later on the edge of the zone, he's going to rotate right around that out left-hand side, use the crash pad he just picked up from the elimination, and just try and sneak in, as you can see there. But he's still going to eat a bunch of damage despite coming in late. So a good rotation from him, a good job picking up a much-needed elimination. However, it's going to put him in a rough position coming up for the next one in terms of separating and finding the half in, half out, as zone number 4 has revealed, and lucky for Daxter, it's on his side. We're going to hop on board here with Nutex, who picked up a miracle elimination right there onto Benny to realistically keep his tournament hopes alive. 24 points right now, Ozzy.
Yeah, I did. I really fell for Binny when that one happened, but Nutex needed just as badly as he goes in now. Charge shotgun out, and he does get the shot straight through, and there goes Rex. So at the same time, as much as I fell for Binny, Nutex making his run home as well. So at least it was someone else who needed the elimination as bad as he did. I'm sure it's not going to make Binny feel any better. I'm sure it's not going to make that player feel any better, but Nutex is pushing forward. He's having a big jump in this final 2 games to try to qualify, and that's why solos is so exciting. Just one elimination is everything right now. We've seen it with Daxor, we've seen it with Nutex now. One elimination is sometimes all you need to get back in there, as we now see Shark in the feed having a much better tail end performance, as Nutex finding Distrep. He has 3 eliminations on the board. If he can secure even a top 30 or a top 25 here, Sundown, I think he's going to qualify off that.
And the key right before that second elimination, he was below the Storm Surge tag, used the crash pad, went through, and he phased the ramp. He had placed himself in the box well enough, though, even though the player tried to cover himself, he was phasing the ramp and allowed him to hit that huge charged shotgun shot, and then following it up with a nice little ambush around the side, really pushing him further into the game. He's about to get the top 50 placement point as well, so setting himself up to make a run at qualifying either here in this game or potentially in game number 6. Again, right after this, we will have our final game of the Heat, but everyone else has to get established right now. And Vix using the launch pad, throwing it against the wall, and picks up and ends game right there. He's going to have to go back to the lobby, and the pressure's going to be on him to guarantee his spot in match number 6.
Yeah, he's hovering around that 30-ish points. Came into this one on 29 points. So with the 2 placement points that he did accrue, he should be okay. But Vix really need to pick up the pace. 17 points on the board. Xset Shark making his way through. New signing to Xset as Stretch also on the top over there. We saw M Booger in this one. So those players on those southern parts of the map are doing better. Zexro also a player I did not expect to see really quite low there. Needs to pick up the pace in a big way. So I'm looking for Stretch here. I'm looking for Zexro. I'm looking for Bucky in the feed. 3 of the biggest names out of NA East who are definitely not safe here.
Yeah, and while we talk about Bucky, I would love to know just how many times Bucky has actually dropped double-digit eliminations in a game, because whenever I think of his huge pop-off plays, they're always super smart and tactical, and they're in these kind of pairs where it ends up guaranteeing them. You never see these kind of monstrous runs of eliminations from him, which he's not going to need right now. He's necessarily on the pace for just guaranteeing himself if he continues playing for the placement points. Now, we've been saying on pace a lot. What does that mean? It's aiming for that 31-point mark. If you can get that, you'll be in the top 25 statistically, and we'll be seeing you play tomorrow for your shot at the $500,000 prize pool there. And Stretch right now is somebody who needs to push that pace a little bit more. He's been trying this game so far with already 3 eliminations and the 2 placement points, pushing him from 15th to 20th, but he needs to do more, and throwing these rifle shots is a great way to start finding 1, 2, 3 tags, but not quite converting it. Can he find another player there? No, but is going to do a good job denying the crash pads and denying other rotations from players.
Yeah, we're making bold predictions here. They made him in the standings beforehand. We saw him shy Clay. I'm making it now. I reckon Stretch with this loadout can make top 5. He's got 3 crash pads, got the launch pad, enough builds to do it. I'd fully expect Stretch to come back here, and there's 1 elimination. There it is. Gets it. Takes down 80 HD. Gets 2 eliminations, I believe, actually on this rotate as well. He does. Gets 2. Trying to make me sound good as I make that call. He's got everything he needs now. 3 crash pads. He got even more mats out of that, and the launch pad. Stretch is going to be in the grand finals. I'm putting my mark on it now, but we'll have to see. He needs to have a good performance, but he is so consistent. He is so smart with his rotates as Nutex, someone else who's now on 28. I said it before too, if he can get trying to in that top 25 area, he's going to be looking so good. 29 points on the board. He's still got 55 builds left, has the rockets that we haven't seen put into use too much today, seeing what he can do with it with only 50 shield and 35 health though.
And you can see Booga picked up an Elim there just inside the top 30 as well, so a good swing for him. Nutex, though, making all the plays that need to happen. We've talked about it so many times. The FNCS gives you an opportunity to capitalize, to rise to the occasion and say it might have looked like one small moment, but it turns into so much more as top 25 will push him up to 30 points. Can he secure himself here as Eclipse will pick up Ace 1? Bucky's still in the feed there, gets exactly, so he's going to push himself closer and closer to that margin. Nutex, though, looking to confirm it, and he will right there. Starving Aiden goes down, top 20 for him. Nutex will see you in the grand finals, and what a run it's been so far this game. Taking down Benny on the edge of the storm. Storm Surge just barely helping him out there, and he's going to close it out. He shuts down Liquid. Stretch as well. Could have effectively just ended his tournament. You have Panda up on the high ground. Booga challenging towards it as well. Jelty's over there. Buis just behind him. Vix completely uncontested on the low ground, but Buis in the top right. Bucky in your bottom right. Everyone else on the left-hand side of your screen as we close in on our top 10.
Yeah, I tried to put it down. I tried to set this up as Stretch's story, but no, Nutex wants to take it, and I can't be happier for him, though, for proving me wrong. He's doing so well. Buis making his way down from the top, has that shockwave launcher in hand. Is Shio's prediction going to come out? This is Buis, a player I have not seen so far that much today, who I have not seen with a shockwave launcher, now having it in hand. 27 points on the board. Going to use those crash pads to break up the builds beneath him because he didn't need it himself. He does still have that shockwave in hand. Bucky down on the low ground, 29 points. Bucky coming back with a big game. It's not the 11 elimination win, but he's got 1 on the board. Make it 2, 31 points. I think we'll be seeing Bucky in the grand final too. These players are jumping up now. They're cementing their position. Buis still trying to cement his position on this high ground, trying to make his way from top down. This zone is getting closer and closer to closing out, but it's dropping down all this verticality, this big position, and he has to work from top down with next to no. Oh, he's still got 35 builds left, enough to work with, but he's holding his high ground very, very well in the situation. Bucky on the ultimate low, posed goes down. It's going to start to get a big, very scramble on the low ground. Shots are going to start rigging out very, very soon as Blaze is taking it slow, but Bucky is happy to control as much of this layer as he can, putting out all those cones. 24 builds left on the low ground, toe-to-toe. Can he close out? He can. He gets that elimination. Gets 2 eliminations, sorry. Back-to-back. Bucky pushing up here at the very end. Blaze going down from above. You are sandwiched between Blaze and Bucky. 2 people you do not want to have around you, as Bucky has that rocket launcher in hand, trying to maybe break someone out, using it to kind of push someone down. There it is. Pushes him down. Doesn't get the shotgun shot, though. Shockwaves raining out. It's Blaze versus Bucky. Bucky back in storm. Blaze toe-to-toe. Gets the high ground. Bucky with the rocket and the shotgun follow-up, though. Can he get one more shot? And no, Blaze closes it out from the high ground, but both those players have secured their position in the grand finals, finishing on mid to high 30 points.
What a huge performance right there from Bucky. So close to the end, but not quite able to get it. Instead, Boyce was the better B on the day. But with match 5 number down, we have 1 more left. We're going to toss it back on over the desk for Zeke, Shio, and Clay to break it down.
Guys, so much great cast. That was it. Game 5 in the books. Blaze finding himself the victory royale. And I gotta say before this, guys, pretty average placement overall, but that victory royale with the 2 eliminations are really gonna be doing wonders for him after this game.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really, really nice from what we saw.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and take a look at our standings, because a lot has actually changed here in the top. And with this game,
Whoa, Zeke,
we should be...
hold up. Hold up, Zeke, give me a second here. Give me a second. I'm getting notes that we actually have an instant news flash package before those standings about Mr. Booga himself, who at the moment is all the way in 5th place with a surprising endgame that we didn't actually fully get to see. Clay, break it down for me.
I got that as well. Booga already popping off in the final moments of this game. As you see, getting that mid-game elimination there with that shotgun, just showing his prowess is still there. He's got that AUG in his, the mythic per se are there, not in his inventory, but the AUG in his inventory really good there. Is Tiny Jelly gonna fall?
Yeah, I mean, Booga, all the eliminations that he got, staying alive all the way till the top 20, the top 10. This was crucial for him to get towards the top spots. Remember, we were mentioning his name over and over again, standing near that top 25 spot, the top 10. Suddenly now, he's boosted all the way up. If he gets into those NA East Grand Finals, this might be a moment for him as a solo player, as an individual, to claim another title again as the best solo player currently in the NA East region and possibly the entire world.
I love you guys so much. Yeah, this is breaking news here, as suddenly Booga, our world champion, is making some very big waves here in the FNCS. So what we need to do is actually take a look at the standings and see how things are shaking out, because we know that top 3 are currently cemented themselves and getting ready to head into grand finals tomorrow. But now we're seeing top 4 and down have seen a pretty drastic change. Let's take a look together. Calc still does hold down that number 1 spot. 50 points is holding strong. Polarized and Crunchy as well have not moved. Smacked, and now Booga finding himself in that 5th place spot, as you guys broke down for us. This could be really, really good. He's got himself a very strong lead.
Now, the thing I was basically trying to mention, and we were trying to put down with this package and the fact that Booga's in the top 10, is we're seeing someone holding their spot now with confidence in heat mode, in that intense endgame mode that we're going to be seeing in game number 6 from Booga. That being said, though, Calc, I think for the 4th game in a row, is holding his 1st place slot all the way up top with still a 6-point lead.
Insane, and if our predictions are correct, Booga looks to just maybe take that spot over. You know, I'm making another bold prediction. Maybe see him come in first this time around, but it's also about the top 25. As you see, EY's there, moving up into 12th place with that victory royale last game. A very, very clutch game there for them to pop off. Bucky, while he did not have an 11 elimination victory royale, he did make his way on up into that top 25 to secure it.
Yeah, big shout outs to Bryce too. This man has been on the verge of not playing solos, then coming back, then just dropping off again, and finally now in a position to qualify for those grand finals. All the way though at the 25th slot, Claw FA, assuming that's free agent there. 26 is the points that you need to be here at the moment just after the 5th game. I would assume that only goes up by a few more points afterwards. look at the point difference between all the people below top 25. They are tied. They are so close next to each other. This could be anyone's game below there to qualify. And for the top 25 too, I mean, I'm just trying to crunch the numbers here. I don't even need these papers. I don't need this pencil because you cannot predict what's about to happen here in this next game for Game 6.
I'm glad you guys are crunching the numbers because I'm not good at math, as Sundown has proven. Guys, this is it. One game left here on the day, and it will directly dictate who is moving on in that top 25. It's only 2 points. That is 2 eliminations. That's a high placement game or somewhere in the middle. But don't forget, EU has showed us it takes one game. One player can pop off, drop a 20-point game, and change everything. There's still room for anything to happen.
And when you know 2 plus 2 does equal 4, but not always in Fortnite. If you don't get the loot that you want and you don't get your drop that you want, it could all equal 5.
That's true. I mean, we gotta let that math sink in for a sec. The big thing to note is that a lot of these top 25 players, a lot of them right now, are qualled by default if we're looking at the points we're looking at for EU. So if we have more players on the map past 32 points who are just trying to get into box fights and trying to hold people back as much as possible from getting endgame, this could be one of the most unique Game 6s we've ever seen across any region, across all tournaments.
Man, can you imagine, dude? It could go. We'll have to see. And you got to think for a lot of these players that are up there in the top, at least top 20, they're thinking, okay, I just have to play the game of survival. I've got to hold it down. I've got to do everything I can to just make sure I lock this in. Because if I make a mistake, whoever is below me in terms of points, 1 point separating us, they're going to have that shot. They could very well take it away from me.
It could indeed,
That's right.
and that's what Fortnite's about. Volatility. This is what Fortnite is, and we've got Game 6 very, very soon.
Oh, man, guys. This is it. Tomorrow is Grand Finals. After this game, we'll know which top 25 will be moving on to Grand Finals in NA East tomorrow. I hope you guys are as excited as we are as we prepare for this final game on the day. Let's get ready to jump out of the battle bus today for the final time with our casters, Sundown and Aussie Antics. Gentlemen, take it away one last time.
Thank you so much, Zeke, Shio, and Clay. And while you might not be the best accountants, you're certainly the best analysts. And here I am with Aussie Antics as we're going into game number 6, the final opportunity for about 12 or 13 of these players to cement their place in the grand finals in their shot at the Axe of Champions in a portion of $500,000.
Yeah, big portion of $500,000 is nothing to scoff at all. We've got some big names who aren't there, and yes, we're seeing another South Zone. So this might be where we see those players that are going to start jumping up now. And I got my eyes on Caddy Corner. I can't really see because those obviously the henchmen cause the markers as well. But looks like there's a few extra names and people hanging around Caddy Corners looking to have their last big game. But I have my eyes on where Stretch is landing at Misty, which is still uncontested on his side. So Stretch can have good loot, a good zone to try and close this one out, as that would be one of the biggest upsets for me not to qualify here today, upwards with names like Zexro as well, who just are outside that bubble.
Yeah, and you can see Zexo just hasn't necessarily had the best day today,
gosh.
nor the best run in solos, but Nutex continuing his amazing run on the back half of today, just immediately running through right there, showing his aggression is paying off. He's definitely executed on this drop spot before and just taking a real early fight there. You can see it from the wide perspective there. Disrupt, trying to get an angle around the side, but Nutex is just having absolutely none of it and just pushes right forward onto him.
Yeah, just pushes straight in and closes it out with the tack, and he may as well. Hits him with the long dance, too. That wasn't just like a little bit of an emote BM. That was the full letting it play out, letting the music ring, and Nutex just running through people at the end. We saw how big of a game he had last game, and that's what I talked about. It was similar to P-God yesterday, having that big game 5, giving you the confidence and the comfortability to go into game 6, knowing you've qualified and just kind of having the victory lap to run home with it. Maybe get some extra practice in, kind of maybe condition your drops a little bit, too. I know Baller was talking about it a bit yesterday, too. With heats coming out, some of these players might have to face off with similar people around them in the grand finals tomorrow, and they're going to want to make sure they understand and put some respect on where they are on the map and where they're rotating.
Or don't put some respect on it, set up an ambush and catch somebody out in game 1 or game 2 and completely throw off their game while setting you up for success. I like that plan,
True.
as we've seen a number of times have that occur.
Yes, we have. It's the Sundown strat for sure as well. There's no ego in that. Just taking every advantage you can to get the elimination. And Ved trying to loot up this it's a big PY that I've expected to see a lot more people perform incredibly well out of. I know Booger was dropping here for at a time as well. There's one other player here in Ved, maybe getting a bit of a beam on. I can't really see what he's looking at, but I know the player is in this direction, so he knows he's somewhere around there. And it is, we have Hallow, who haven't seen really, or Ved. So two players who probably a bit down on the leaderboard. And Ved maybe needing to have a really, really big game here. We're looking at an 11 or 12 point game, which with this format is possible. 14 points on the line for the Victory Royale alone. If you win this last game, you can really jump up there, but that's hard task. If you've got 19 points in 5 games to try and pick up, 12, 13 in a single one, it's going to be pretty tough.
That's like when you see everybody take to social media and go like, hey, you know what? I need a 10 elimination of Victory Royale to qualify, but Ved shuts down Crunchy right there, saying, I don't care how you like your peanut butter. I'm going to take him out. He's going to go over, pick up all the remnants there, get that loot, hopefully before the Shark goes off and gobbles it all up. You can see Duzan over in a 1v1 now. On the side, on the back foot right now, but does hit a key shot to back his opponent off, is in a charged shotgun, so going to be looking more for those punishing shots if he can. Does have plenty of minis to keep that 150 effective HP shield, but definitely on the back foot here, and with 19 points, can't afford to go down, or that'll be the end of his FNCS as Bucky picks up edits to end his FNCS.
Yeah, Duzan trying to get elimination onto Assault, a player that I feel bad for kind of almost forgetting he was here in the tournament. He hasn't performed too well today, and we see why. It goes down to Duzan, picks up an elimination on 20 points, so needs a big game, and Shark goes down as well. I know Shark had a rough start to today, but kind of picked himself up in the tail end of it to try and jump his way back up there. He was in 6th place, so he is secure, he is safe, but he had to have a run home for it. We saw him start off shaky, so that means Shark, like he touched on earlier, Sundown, he was seeing the potential of playing those trio cash cups, only played in 1 week of the qualifiers. That was enough to qualify him into heats, and now he's going into grand finals, so backing his confidence on the day, someone to probably look out for tomorrow, as we now see Trap pushing up onto Sticks, someone who's been playing pretty well here today, just outside of the Shark in this little house, and maybe setting up for an ambush like you've talked about. I think he is, Sunday. I'll let you call this one.
Dun-dun, dun-dun, and it's over. Real quick, because again, the key here is he waits for him to go in and interact with the chest, because regardless of what you do, as soon as you're holding that interact button, there's a short amount of time before you can do anything. Your character has to go through the animation of pulling the gun back out and then actually firing it and turning. Sticks has the high rate of fire weapon, has the tactical shotgun, make sure he blocks off the exit right away, locks the player in with him, and then finishes up. Ooh. That's how you execute on one of those picks. And again, it happens right as we turn over for a placement point. So it's 2 key points being swung over there.
Here we see Eclipse getting him in the feed and Stretch. This is not Liquid Stretch getting dropped out and taken down by Festival. And that's one of the powers of that charged shotgun. If you can break someone's builds out and they fall through the sky, there's nothing they can do to catch themselves unless they get back closer down to more builds. So you can fully charge up that charged shotgun. And it's a very predictable falling target to hit that big shot. As we now tune back in over to Mikey, who's currently was inside our top 10, dropped quite far in that last game, down to 17th, so already qualified, but maybe needs to have a final big game to push himself up there and put some respect on the name, as he has a pack of Marauders chasing him down. Needs to be careful right up against this mountain too, so I want to get an easy third-party situation on him as the Marauders. They're such a loud audio cue. We haven't seen them having too many big interactions in today's heats like we have in previous ones, starting off fights that players maybe don't want to have, but it's pretty much like a marching band to follow behind you and tell everyone where you are and make a lot of noise, as Mikey actually not making a lot of noise here and ramping up over this opponent. And he didn't walk on top of the mountain, he built up over it so he wouldn't be on the same layer and he wouldn't be heard coming up there. But this player just dropped off the other side and Mikey can't find the shots. Crash pads in the back pocket to maybe force this fight, but I have to think if this player's not in his point threshold, this could be their tournament, as Mikey doesn't have much to lose here.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Mikey is just going to pop that crash pad and go right away on this player. We talked about the Marauders on the back. They're just now making their way up the hill. If he's able to resolve this engagement quickly, he can use the difference in verticality to end it. But Purge says, no. No griefing for you, sir. I will continue my tournament and make my run in peace. 16 points for him. Also, no Storm Surge in play for what I believe will be the first time in match number 6 as 70 players have gone down inside the first circle. So you can sense a little bit of the desperation, but that also means that if you aren't getting those eliminations right now, other players are, and other players are going to creep right back up that leaderboard, as Virus, sitting on no elims but has gotten that 1 placement point, is going to need another 4 to guarantee him the spot in the Sunday finals. And that's going to be our focus for the rest of this match. Whoever we're watching, we're trying to figure out what do they have to do to be playing in the grand finals, because that's all that matters. First place or 25th, you're getting a ticket to the dance as your prize.
Yeah, and quite often we've seen those names show up. We've seen people who've come in last, coming into a qualifier, then go on to win the tournament. So as much as you want to focus on who's going to win here, and Zexro making a different play this one, pushing into authority. We haven't seen that too much today. Someone I touched on is needing to have a big game here, so we can focus on Zexro as someone who needs to have a 10-point game after this, and someone who can do it though. Zexro, obviously a competitive veteran, been putting on some serious display since the start of competitive Fortnite, looking to see if he can do so here with this player dropping beneath him. It's an awkward fight, and he's going to crash pad through the floor, but not throw himself in, showing some of that kind of clinical, I want to say not passiveness, but the smarter players from Zexro are not just full sending it in with the crash pad, but instead using it to try and break up the builds, get some more information, and disengages from that one, holds on to his high ground. But Zexro is going to need to get, what is it, probably top 5 at least if he's going to go off placement points alone and no eliminations. As again, the win is 14, but no, getting 1 elimination on the board there onto Crack. That's 1 big point that he needed, and that's the big grappler. I have not seen Zexro have this in his kind of inventory, so that could be a huge play for him. All the focus is usually around that caddy launcher, but the grappler gun isn't anything to scoff at.
No, honestly, I'm of the opinion that the glider grapple gun is the easier of the 2 to execute on. 1, you don't have to worry about your ammunition charges. 2, you have slightly more control over your movement if you're able to refine that mastery. But as we talk about that, flip on over to the side. So 2 players who have already qualified for the grand finals. So this is a nice little sneak peek into what you'll see in terms of the engagements on Sunday. These are 2 of the top 100 players in NA East. Bucky, somebody who's been there for a long time. Nutex, somebody who made an amazing run on the back half here to get the pressure. And also, there's a Marauder just knocking on the door saying hi, one lonely dude. Don't see where any of his friends are, but Nutex is hurting in terms of the utility. Just the 2 weapons and some minis.
Yeah, we've got the Clash of Titans here with the Marauder trying to have their say in it as well, just kind of applying that pressure from the backside, and it can be quite irritating, especially with the audio cues. It does mess up some of the sound that you would have as Bucky goes in, but Nutex with the incredibly fast ramp rotation flips the ramp into Bucky's face as he comes through, but it's not enough. Bucky closes out that fight, and again, these players that are going to run into each other again tomorrow, so they want to put some kind of bragging rights down and see who is the most dominant one, as we see Dubs, who with these south zones, it's actually interesting to see he's having a worse tournament now that zones have started to pull south. He was in that top 10 position for quite a while, I think peaking at 6th place, and now he's dropped down quite considerably after last game. Still has qualified, but he's toe-to-toe with Niddle, someone who needs to jump up there, who has not qualified. Crash pad out, looking like he's trying to choreograph what he's going to do next. He's stuck on the crash pad though, has to pop it. If Niddle goes down here, this is his tournament over. It would be a legendary run to qualify here, but the Ghost player, you can never count him out. Dubs box up next to him. I'm surprised that Niddle didn't go for the crash pad in there like he did earlier through the corner of that box. Dubs trying to get away from it. Niddle just trying to close this one out, but it's looking pretty desperate here. Niddle is not closing this one out as cleanly and as effectively as what you would hope for the utility he has, and that could explain why he's on 15 points here.
Yeah, and this is World Cup qualifier against World Cup qualifier. Dubs, the original hot box fighter when he came out, and he's been pushing forward, known for his aggressive style and closing these fights out. Again, you talked about it, 32 points, so likely seeing him on Sunday unless there is a bizarre push that we haven't seen yet. But Niddle, on the other hand, not going to be seeing him on Sunday. Dubs catches him with a huge charge shotgun shot there to end his tournament. The headshot going to send him back to lobby. The 15 points not enough to advance to that top 100.
Yeah, I think at the same time, you touched on it there, the fact that Dubs popularized or came out as one of those big box fires originally, and then we had the statistic earlier that he's got the highest average placement, so adapting to that meta, maybe adapting to that higher point format and realizing he doesn't want to go for those box fires that he was so good at, and kind of still showing that that's why he's been one of those top players for so long, because he can change with the game. He's not stuck in one style, as we see now Han boxed up next to this player on 29 points and not having the best loadout. This is not really the position you want to be in. 10 players away from going down until he gets an extra point to put him on 30. So if he can get 1 or 2 more eliminations, get inside that top 40, he might have his ticket for tomorrow. But if he falls here with this loadout, which is not looking the greatest, that could be a pretty big disaster for Han, who's had a good day here today. We have to point out some of these players that are going down outside top 25 are still having phenomenal tournaments, but top 25 in this heat is a tall ask as Han is up to the ask. He takes down Starving 8 and gets the elimination, 30 points. If he can survive until 8 players go down by our predictions, he will qualify for tomorrow.
Yes, and he's so close to doing so. Needed to pick that up. 16 HP being the difference, but we've seen just how every little one of these moments and every little one of the engagements can be the one that pushes you over the top. And Stretch, again, needs to find one of those. We talked about his point totals currently sitting on 28, 57 players left. So you have that one relatively easy placement point coming through. Opting to stick with the rare tactical shotgun instead of the rare charge shotgun. So showing his preference there, but also just utilizing all of this interior building to try and get as many brick and metal mats as he can. This is kind of an awkward zone in terms of the amount of verticality because there's a lot of potential verticality in play, but the sight lines from the top of the hills over here make it so that if you're somebody who does occupy one of those spaces, you have a lot of angles to punish people. However, it's mainly punishment coming from the east, and the giant valley in the middle is going to separate it. So likely what we're going to see is everyone in the middle will be totally safe and they'll be chill. All the fights are going to happen depending on which side of the circle zone number 4 pulls, because again, we are on zone number 3. So one more fully interior safe zone before we have half in, half out. Then it'll be full moving for our final game here in NA East.
Yeah, and Stretch went down 15th last game, and he had a very similar loadout to now with a somewhat similar zone, a more southern zone. He had that launch pad. He did have 3 crash pads instead of 1, but Bucky falls now as well. So luckily for Bucky, having a very big 5th game to kind of jump him up there, because he needed that, because his 6th game wasn't too hot, but he is there. And as I was saying, Stretch, if he can have the same game he did last time, top 15 would definitely secure it, but he needs to do so as this lobby is closing out a bit quicker. Sundown touched on it before. It's the first game we've had today where we haven't had an active Storm Surge on that first zone of that 70 mark. So a lot of these players going more aggressive, maybe losing their composure too. These guys have been playing for 6 games now. This is their 6th and final game. They need to compose themselves. They need to make every single interaction matter, because one misplay, one wrong step, one wrong build, and your tournament is over and you might not qualify for the grand finals tomorrow. And this has been at the back of 2 weeks of incredible qualifiers. They had to play 2 days each weekend in a row of solos. It's a big, big ask, but a lot of these players have been up to it. Vix trying to see if he can as well. 90 builds, 26 points.
You can see there that 4th zone does pull. 5 players will need to fall, but in most other games we've seen there still be around 70, 65 players left in this circle. So 10 potential points off the board, but that much closer to the placement, as Vix had a huge game last game, pushing himself into the top 5 to be in contention now. 5 points short here, and you can see the zone did pull mostly to the southern side, so we're off kind of that gorgeous gorge in the house that's right there. You have the old ghost base that's been retired out and just kind of ran through. That's right there on the side, but not a ton of verticality that's actually going to be in zone. Whoever's on top of the mountains 100% has priority, and it's going to be on everyone else to rotate past and to stake their claim. Adrian, though, under pressure from the stink bomb, is on 25 points, so can't afford to go down. There's a second stink bomb. Want to get away from that smell. You didn't smell it. You didn't deal it either, but wants to create some space right now. Has some shields, but again, you cannot go down without getting the placement point. Crash pad goes in, actually throws him out. He says, "Thank you, sir. Bye." Is going to use that traversal. He had no utility himself except the shields, and now he gets plenty of time to pot them. That is so fortunate for Adrian.
Yeah, fortunate. Must have been misplay from the opponent. They did the crash pad in and they just threw another crash pad, and it wasn't even out of the frying pan into the fire. I can't even finish my thought, and no, he smells it. You asked me if he smelt it, and Adrian's tournament goes down to stink bombs. You can't do anything to avoid them. They do 5 damage, but it goes past your shield. It only does health damage, and that's what Adrian did not have. He popped the shields, but he had no white meds, and he falls. That is his grand final chance done for, as we see Duzan on 21 having to have a big run here to close it out, and that's an unfortunate way to go down.
It's unfortunate being picked off there, being pinned between the side, can't leave the box there, and the stink directly on top of it. Only thing you can do is move away from the volume, but when everyone else is boxed up around you and in that safe zone, can't exactly move so safely. Talked about the lack of utility and hoping to get bounced out there, but right now, 2 players need to be bounced out before Storm Surge turns off, but everyone's pretty much already in the zone, so we'll see a couple players who are forced to take a little bit of action here as Calc, the current leader, is boxed up right next to Duzon.
And that's not where you want to be. But then again, Calc has kind of slowed down the pace a little bit. I don't think he got any points last game, so the Southern Zone showing a bit of an issue in 5th game, but 6th game, Calc could do something, but maybe showing that he isn't being incredibly aggressive, as I don't think he has too many eliminations on the board so far this game, so Duzan next to him might not have to worry too much as other players who've seen like Nutex who are running through people having already qualified, and we're 2 players away from that extra placement point, which could be the difference between some of these players. As I say that, Calc takes on Bwace, who we saw actually win the game against Bucky, and there we go, never mind, Duzan takes down Calc. He gets the big elimination he needed, disengages, hasn't had a chance to pop those shields yet, and I was about to say, going through the sky on that little health is scary, especially when other people can hear and see that shield crack, and never mind, stays alright, near dubs now. This is just Duzan going through a who's who of this lobby right now, rotating close to him as we see Stretch is still in this one, and I want to see if we can get eyes on maybe Zexro to see, because he is also outside that bubble as someone who definitely would have been expected to qualify.
Yeah, interested in Eclipse as well. We saw him pick up a pair of early eliminations ready to turn into. Suscript finds a huge one on the Kip, and Zexro also picks up Nebify, and Laggy gets Neff there. As we continue closing in, top 40 will be the next placement threshold there. Festival picks up Damien. We're going to switch to a wide here. You can see Clarity, Eclipse on the tarp just below ultimate high ground. We got Berserker and Tenzin on the ultimate low ground. Tenzin, 26 points, needs 5 more to push himself up. About half of the available builds right now. However, weaponry only sitting on that common tactical shotgun and the legendary pistol. So going to be looking either for some pistol dink headshots or to just barge right into a box and hopefully overpower somebody quickly with that tack. Schmacked will pick up Katsui on the side of the zone. We're beginning to see the rotation come out now.
Yeah, your eyes are going to be on that placement threshold as well. Tenzin, if he does just secure placements, doesn't need an elimination, and with what he has, that might be the go. You touched on it, not exactly the firepower you want, but maybe the utility to get him towards those placements and just hold on to those 70 builds that he has left. But first zone going completely opposite. That's your first rotating zone so far. Zone number 6, and it's going across, and he needs to make his way there. Also has these builds on his head, so he can't even crash pad out of this box. So this rotate is going to be a dicey one unless he can find something. Possibly that's a setup for a launch pad to his left. It's Suscript. I can't remember if he had one. This is going to be it for Tenzin. Can he find it? Can he find some mobility? Booger making the rotate through, not waiting for it, but Tenzin is caught waiting. He's going to follow these players. None of them dropping any launch pads, so it's going to be a dash for it. It's going to have to be a run, and he falls. That's it. That's the risk you play when you wait for someone else to use something. He had 4 crash pads, didn't rely on his, and it goes down to a player on 8 points, but unfortunately, that is just how sometimes it goes in solos, as Big Head picks up Doxy Fishy in the feed, and I'm looking for those players like Stretch, like Zexo up there, who might not qualify and would be a massive upset to not see in your grand finals tomorrow. Berserk, one of them, 26 points, trying to jump up there. Panda getting an elim in the feed as well.
Berserk picking up Serbs there. Clarity picks up Taki as well. As we continue looking through, you can see Trank up on the high ground. Berserk also bouncing right behind him. You have Viable Amazon right behind him. Jelty also still continuing to rotate through. Suscript up to 20 points. Also has Ocean's Loot, the Mythic Burst, as well as the Chug Jug. Probably won't see a ton of the Chug, but right now, Suscript making a good push for it. 4 eliminations so far, keeping himself in contention. Don't forget, top 30 will be that next placement point here. Storm Surge is on. 5 players will be under pressure, but with rotating directly east, slightly uphill, but not too much terrain, you can expect a number of players to go down, mainly from this high ground position. Suscript picking up Han there. Jaxi gets short, and we close in on the top 30, and there we have, as Luck picks up Duzon and Trank, it goes down to the Storm. Eclipse still up as well.
Yeah, Suscript, this could be that legendary performance. This could be that doubling your points in a single game. If he goes from about 15 points starting this game up to above around that low 30 point we're looking for, it could be massive. 23 points now. Jelty, Gabe also getting elimination in the feed, trying to make his way forward here just inside top 25, and it's going to start to happen soon. 40 builds, so he has control. He doesn't have to push out onto anything crazy. He can keep playing the game the way he is. Smart, methodical, takes down Stretch, one of those players who needed a big game. I think that will have been enough for him, but we'll have to break it down down at the end to see Slacks on the high ground, and he's making a good push. Eclipse you asked for earlier, Sundown. There he is on front side. Zexro on 28. Zexro needs this. He's going to need about 4 to 5 points to guarantee this. I think it's going to be more around that 32, low 30 mark to get it. Has that grappler, but has no more shields. Has 3 builds. Has next to nothing to work with but his mechanics. This is where Zexro is going to back his aim, and if you're going to bet on anyone's aim here to land, it's going to be Zexo with the movement, but no, he's getting lit up. He's pushed back, and there it is, 57. He fires back heavy like I would have expected, but no, he falls. 29 points. That's not going to be enough, Sundown.
No bandages to pop there, and Zexro can't save himself. The glider gun not proven to be strong enough, but right now, Slack's up on the high ground. 21, 11 players left. We've talked about it. 31, 32 has been the line we're looking for. Eclipse picks up Berserker, who is also very close to that line. Styx gets Jelthy, and we have our top 10. Right now, it's Slack's 22 points. He needs absolutely everything if he's going to push forward and make that mark. The Victory Royale is an extra 3. There's a placement point coming through at 5th and 3rd, and he needs whatever he can get. You can see Eclipse down there on the low ground, also picking up an Elim. He pushes himself up closer and closer as well. I can't tell whether that's a 2-4 or a 3-4 right there, unfortunately.
2-4, I believe, is 24.
Okay, so he's going to need to push up there, but Slack's in the top right, Eclipse in the body right. Which one of the Luminosity Gaming players can secure the Victory Royale and potentially push themselves into the grand finals? This is the final play here, the final top 5, Aussie.
This is it. This is everyone's last chance. We are going to crown our top 100 playing in the grand finals tomorrow after this. Slacks drops down, gets elimination on his way down, has the flopper still, so it's going to be LG versus Iomzo, but unfortunately for this player, Slack still has the builds. He has some beautiful building coming out, 20 materials left, 20 whole builds, finds his way up, shots down below. Iomzo gets dropped on Eclipse. He's pinned between LG and LG. It's Slacks versus Eclipse, 27 points. Slacks needs this win. Even with this win, is it enough? That's 3 points for the Victory Royale and 1 point for the elimination. Was that enough, or does Slacks just fall short in the final moments? Oh my gosh, same as every other heat, it has come down right to the wire, Sundown.
And the key thing to note there, too, right at the end, is Slacks is going to have the tiebreaker if it's on 31 for getting the Victory Royale. He also shut out Eclipse, who at the end, if he did get the Victory Royale and the points, would have been pushed up to 32. And Eclipse stealing an elimination at the end could have been enough to keep him out. But the winner for heat number 4 is Built by Gamers Calc, 52 points. The Victory Royale, 16 eliminations, and an average placement inside the top 30. Congratulations to Calc for a fantastic, well-played heat from him to go basically wire to wire with the lead.
Yeah, he pretty much had it. So he was on 50 points going into those final 2 games. So Calc almost had this tournament in 4 whole games. So a very, very solid performance from him here today.
And the thing to note in particular, going out and looking through, is it's everyone in the top 25. So while the first place is huge, we talked about it. What's your prize? It's a ticket to the dance. And the question is, what happened with the LG on LG feud at the end? Is the 31 points in the Victory Royale enough? Did Eclipse get denied out? That's the question. We're done for the day. Thank you so much. It's been Sundown and Aussie Antics. We're going to throw it back over the analysts to wrap it up and show us our top 25.
Thank you so much, guys. You were incredible as always. And that wraps up heat number 4 in NA East. Gentlemen, again, a massive congratulations to Calc finding himself in that top spot. But it is the top 25 as a whole that we need to take a look at. As Sundown did mention, did someone like Eclipse make it in? Did Slacks with the 31 points? Was that enough? Let's find out together as we see which of the 25 players will be moving on to tomorrow.
Okay, the top 10, as you mentioned, Zeke, as we've seen, Calc is the reigning champ right now for heat number 4. 52 points in total, kept that distance away from Ace, who got to second place really fast and kept it secured. Smack right afterwards, who we're used to seeing in the top 5 and the top 4 every single time he's playing some of these things, all the way down to the bottom 10, or to the top 10. After that, though, this page has changed every single time. Bryce is down to 20th place after that game. Dubs, Daxter, Doxy Fishy, Posed, Nutex, Exactly FN, Shark, Gabe, and Avery. And this is page number 3. Let's see who got that top 25 spot. It's going to be Berserker, sitting right there with Slacks. He just needed 1 more point.
The elimination that Eclipse ended up grabbing away from Slacks means that he gets that 26th place. But what a game to end on. That victory royale was insane.
And on the edge, the bubble, Eclipse did place 31st with 29 points, tying with Zexro. So if either of these players could have come up big, they would have tried and potentially made that push. But all in all, that is the top 25 players. Everyone is locked and loaded on the battle bus, preparing for tomorrow's grand finals. That's it, Fortnite fam. 1 day left of action, and tomorrow we crown FNCS champions. Gentlemen, before we do go, any quick goodbyes? Clay, you want to start?
I hope everybody was excited as I was for that ending, and I know EU and NA East are going to bring it hot and spicy tomorrow.
All right, if you guys have been watching with us the entire day, first off, go hydrate, get a drink of water, because these games, I know they were called heats. They got really hot today, both in EU and NA East. Taken, it was 100 players out of 400 that we saw today. Tomorrow, it'll be the culmination of everything we've been showing you back-to-back on these broadcasts with the final top 100 players from Europe and NA East. So many more regions also have to wrap up, but I hope I can handle what we see tomorrow.
That goes for everyone included. Guys, thank you so much. As we mentioned, tomorrow's grand final, so we'll see you back here, same time, same place. Till then, Fortnite fam, we'll see you guys on the battle bus.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Show me what you got. What joy!
Pleasure to beat ya.
Pickle Rick!
Oh my god, they killed Kenny.
What have I unleashed? Away we go! awesome.